Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout of thanks and appreciation to Smith Tools and Purchase, Level Plain Poem, Vitaly Z, Colton James, BG, Survive the Spin, FE Patriot, Thomas van der Zander, Measured Flat, Chris Wouters, Sea Level Cultist, Mitch Kennedy, Rod, The Name's Burley, Twadwazzle, Jason Hornsby, JMels24, Unamento, Iron26, Endless, Retro Bill, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Dale West Watson, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Texas Mike, Chow Young Cat, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Links to Patreon are below this video. With that, I'll hand across to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show. Morning. Morning, Surf Daddy.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm in my car driving. Picking up some greens for my sheep, and so probably not going to sound very good, but thought I'd say hi and pass on my condolences for your dad. And wish you all a great day.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Thank you. And you go on mute.
I live to be told to go on mute by Nathan Oakley. The end of FED was not only awesome clickbait, but it was the most concise and easy to understand idea of how, quote, the earth is measured flat, unquote, is true, and it's probably one of the best shorter videos I've been able to share.
I actually made a shorter version, as in a shorts version.
I liked it. It was under 10 minutes. I could share it pretty easily. I think it could probably be shortened down just a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Got it down to 3. Pop yourself on mute and I'll play you the 3-minute version.
Okay.
Kilometers. In order to apply trigonometry to Earth, Earth will be measured flat and is measured flat. It's the only way an angle will be described, a linear distance can be applied, or an elevation from surface level can be depicted in meters in this instance. And if you are to in any way infer or suggest that they are not flat Earth, linear miles or kilometers, or suggest or infer that they are not flat Earth elevations off surface level, or infer or suggest that it is not a flat Earth elevation angle with respect to surface level for the angle to be an angle, then you relinquish your utilization of these flat Earth measurements, and they are the only measurements we can and do use. The Earth being measured flat is not a suggestion or an assumption, it is a prerequisite. If it isn't flat, this distance isn't linear, and you cannot call it kilometers. Upon your sinking to your knees in acknowledgement of the flat Earth we measure, and we only measure a flat Earth. It puts an end to any suggested discussion.
On a globe, the peak would be lower at 2 degrees 17 minutes.
On a globe, we wouldn't measure an angle, because this no longer gives you the ability to describe two straight lines meeting at a vertex the definition of an angle. Because if this curves, then this is not an angle. If this curves, this is not perpendicular. And if this curves, this is no longer linear, therefore not a measured kilometre distance. If it's not perpendicular, it's not a height off surface level. If it is not flat, you can't measure the angle. Ergo, on your knees in acknowledgement of what Earth is measured as, for you to suggest that we go forward in the discussion? No, it's over. This is the end. Earth is flat. That's it. Get it down to 3 minutes.
Kudos. That's excellent. I didn't see the video, but I envisioned in my head just a montage of angle measurements. You know, just go through, get Google images of a bunch of measuring angles, elevation angles, measuring angles to buildings and mountains, stuff like that. And just the whole discussion of angles. Just doing a montage of all the images of an elevation angle, sextants, and all that
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
good job. Excellent.
Thanks. Hey, Neil.
Your name just came up. I was listening to that video I just posted with the liar Duffy. He claims that outsiders after TFE offered to pay for you to go to Antarctica and you denied.
All right. Did he ever show where he invited me and I responded and the back and forth where I rejected his invitation? Did he ever show that?
No, he's talking about after it.
All right.
Talking about
I mean,
after TFE, somebody with all the momentum worldwide, people contacted him and offered to pay for other flat earthers to go, like Eric Dubay, and he said no, and Nathan Oakley, and you said no. 18-minute 50 mark. You'll hear it.
yeah, I don't care.
These people, and you know what bothers me? The channel is supposedly celebrate. It's from Celebrate Truth, but it's standing for truth, biblical creation. Is totally the opposite what they're standing for.
You mean they're
Unbelievable.
lying?
Yeah. No shame.
My mother used to say to me when I was a kid, she thought I was lying, she'd say, shame the devil. The devil wants you lying.
There's no shame in the devil here. The false dichotomy goes, and everybody said I was using a false dichotomy. Yeah, you are. You're holding up. He's holding up the AE map, and declaring ice walls. So you're right. They set this all up.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't care. It's measured flat, Neil. We won. Now it's just the bravado. We're pointing out that bravado. In other words, there is no discussion here. There just needs to be an impression that flat Earth is over. Now, the flat Earth that they created is. They built it up to knock it down. Okay? Well, we're still here. Were we part of it? No, we were excluded quite early on, weren't we, Neil? Well, we can't be a part of them knocking it down, because then we're inside it telling people Earth's measured flat right about now. Instead, the group they are, or were, past tense, building up, were told that we were scammers, so they kept well away from us. So now that they're being broken back down again, they're nowhere near us saying, who cares, Earth's measured flat. Well, they don't get to hear it, they're nowhere near us, they thought we were scammers because they were told so. Well, the reality is that's what you do. If you're a scammer, anybody who criticises you, tell them that they're the deceiver, they're the scammer. If you're a con man, anybody who's trying to protect your mark from your con, you tell that person that the person trying to protect them is a con man. That's what you do. You project everything that you're doing onto the person that's trying to protect them.
Yeah, then he brings up, he said he got all his information together, and all the prominent flat earthers declared that there was an ice wall and you would not see a 24-hour sun. And if it was a 24-hour sun, it would be a globe. And if there wasn't, if there was, it couldn't be flat. And if there wasn't, it was flat. I don't know, something to that effect.
And that dictates our reality. If all the prominent flat earthers say it's not flat, and then they come along and confirm that which they've affirmed by way of false dichotomy, then it's not flat. No, mate, it's measured flat. Nothing will change that. One of your number has been told it 100 times. Doesn't make any difference to you guys. You carried on measuring it flat, though, didn't you? And then we pointed out that you measured it flat. That's what we did. What did you say? You invited me, and I didn't invite the rejection and blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Who cares? It's measured flat. You think it matters about whether or not I was invited? No, Duffy's just a liar.
By the way, major strides in the book while you were grieving.
You were?
Major strides in the book. It moved along beautifully for 2 days.
Oh, you were editing it without me? That's the first time that's happened.
Yeah, it was Monday. I think Refracted opened up a room, and you opened one up at 3:30 yesterday. A.M.
Me?
Yeah, you opened the room. We thought you opened it for us to do it.
No, wasn't me.
What?
No. Craig opened up a room. So I came back from the funeral and went to Craig to drop off a microphone. As much as it pained me, I still have to pay the mortgage. So I still had to take a mic to Craig to get modified, because it's on eBay and it's like advertised as being modified, and it isn't, you know. So I wanted to get that resolved as quickly as possible. So I dropped that mic down to Craig. He's like, shouldn't you be grieving? I'm like, yeah. Then he showed me. He was like, I started up a hangout and Neil joined it and then immediately disappeared. I said, it's not the same without Nathan. Craig was like, oh, you've only been here 10 seconds.
No, that's not what happened. I thought it was open for the book, so I just stood there. I was telling him that Refracted wanted to open up a room. They had a big thing with him on. He was taking it the wrong way. I said, it's not going to carry weight if you open a room, and QE and Adam don't know why you're opening your room unless you tell them it's for the book. Anyway, he took it to a different level, but that's settled. And even One Deck on QE Live the other day, you sent me a message. Why don't we do a show for Nathan? I was like, how are we even going to do it? How are we going to get on a flat earth debate? You know, it ain't going to work. Without Nathan, it don't go.
Maybe. I mean, anyone can run a hangout, and that was kind of Craig's point. He was just open to hangout, and I was like, maybe it's slightly different for mine because it's paid for. Like, I have a couple more features or something, and he was like, nah, it's exactly the same. I'm like, okay, so it's just the time limit then that a free one presumably stops you after a certain amount of time, or it used to. That's why I started paying for it.
Now I had to keep every hour they would ask me if I wanted to continue in the Hangout. I would have to click the button to keep it going,
Yeah.
or they
Yeah.
just kick me out.
Well, yeah, exactly. I don't want that kind of stuff going on while I'm doing a show.
Yeah. Anyway, it was good. It was a good 2 sessions.
Good. I'm very pleased
The
to hear.
next one is Monday at 12:30.
Good.
Reality. You know, like questions like I get questions like, so what angle would you predict on a flat Earth for this? It's like, what angle are you trying to hijack?
It's
The funny thing is the flight on their way over, Nathan, you said it. They were proving flat Earth, but they're too ignorant. Anyway, he's doing a live show right now. I told him, get your butt in here. You defended yourself when Brother Sanchez brought it up. But now we're bringing it up, Duffy. You know how to join. Come and join.
for what now? I said I don't care.
For what?
Yeah, I
what?
mean, if he
What's
wants
the
to,
purpose
he
of
can
Duffy?
come and join the show. And pain is the general objective of most people who join from their side. Come and share your pain, fine. But for what?
Well, the funny thing is, everybody in chat is dogging him. I thought it would be a pro-Globe chat. They're all mocking him in chat.
What are they saying to him?
Let's see. At one point in time proves that this whole channel is dead. It does not matter at different points in the day or anything. Just at this one point when most people are more than likely in better sleep. Okay, here's another one. Wonderful Duffy the Deceiver. 5 viewers say a lot. This channel is dead.
Which channel? I don't even know what you're talking about.
Will Duffy, he's on the TFE. That's what it's called.
Yeah, when you
He's got
give
a
your
channel now.
if you say something like, "This is the last time I'm going up Everest. It's the final expedition, the last hurrah, the last time we're going to need to do it, or we'll do it," and then you do it, and then you come back, and let's be honest, Duffy, it's because I'm here, isn't it? Yeah, saying Earth's measured flat and you measured it that way. That's why you need to do a final experiment. Lone Rangers, right? We're still here pointing out that Earth's measured flat, and Will's like, everyone's gone, it's been a mass exodus. Yeah, they left your channel by the sounds of things. Over here, it's still measured flat, though. I mean, I don't care how many people are watching. It's kind of irrelevant. It's a non sequitur to the winning section of the perceived to be debate that never really existed to begin with. There wasn't really a debate. There just had to be this impression of a debate created, because if you've just got Earth being measured and people look at how it's measured, they'll go, well, it's just measured flat. How could we ever possibly believe it's a ball? Well, the answer is you can't. So how do you get around that little problem if you're telling them it's a ball from birth? Well, you get them to argue about whether or not it's a ball if they ever ponder the idea that generally Earth is as it's measured. Now, if you ponder it and somebody around you points out that, oh no, it's a really, really, really big ball, therefore you can measure Earth flat, but it's a really, really, really big ball, you know. You just have to understand that contradiction in terms when we measure it flat. And should anybody challenge you that that Earth that we've measured flat is flat because they believe it's flat, chastise them and call them idiots and tell them to drink bleach and never reproduce. Because if they just believe it's flat, when we are measuring the really big ball flat to show you how ball-shaped it is with the calculations that we make after we measured it flat, then those flat Earth believers need to understand that when they say we see too far, they're just idiots, those flat Earthers saying we see too far. I'll explain how it's just perfectly far enough when we're looking for Earth curve. But flat Earthers, Those are the people who say we see too far. They're the people who say that we aren't seeing Earth curve. There should be Earth curve in the way of these buildings. That's what Earth curve is to the flat earthers that we all call idiots. So now you've got a nice little powers that should not be, example earlier notwithstanding, where there's an imaginary bunch of people creating a false dichotomy. It's not, it's just us. And in this instance, us is Will Duffy, creating that false dichotomy. Okay, well, your false dichotomy still comes with a heavy dose of flat Earth measurements every time Earth gets measured. I'm done.
Well, here's the funny thing. He's broadcasting from Celebrate Truth, which was Robbie Davidson, and he was supposedly a flat earther. He was probably a flat earth believer. I like how one guy is holding up the scripture because Will Duffy says he's a pastor. And this guy, Frosty Bud 777, says, in the book of Joshua, it is written that the sun stood still and the moon did not move for about a whole day when the nation avenged itself on its enemies. The sun stood still and the moon stopped until the nation took vengeance upon its enemies. Is this not written in the book of Joshua? So it's also in another book.
Hold on a second. So it says, just to paraphrase slightly, Earth stopped.
No, it says the sun and the moon. So the sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed.
Yeah,
going down about
Neil,
a full day.
You're just not a good Christian. You're not reading between the lines correctly. When it says the sun stopped, what it means is Earth's a ball in heliocentric motion developed by Copernicus after these words were written, and that mathematical extrapolation that we reify in modern times means Earth's a ball and it stopped. You're just not reading between the lines, Neil. You're not understanding me.
But listen, the end says when the Lord, it says there has not been a day like it ever since. So no, the earth did not stop. But what's his name? Danny Faulkner says the same thing. He said what actually happened was the earth stopped moving, but they just didn't know the earth was moving back then. They were just dumb cavemen or something.
Sorry,
They were unlearned
just
men.
out of interest, when he says that they just didn't understand that, who's the Bible penned by? Is it penned by just dickhead men, or is it the Word of God?
Yeah, it's the Word of God written by
just
holy
to be clear,
men.
Danny Faulkner says it's penned by who? Some dumb idiots that didn't know that the earth was turning when they read between the lines of the words of God. I see, Danny Faulkner. That's fascinating. Fascinating. Heathen. Himsake. Shout out to you, my friend. She says, good to see you, Nathan. Shout out to Brian. Don't let him catch you riding dirty. What's that mean?
It means don't let him catch you with driving too fast with a gun, with drugs.
Without a license.
Yeah, anything like that.
I see. Because I'm such a clean, honest, upstanding and respectable citizen, I don't understand this terminology. I see.
Remember that you said it was alive? Will Duffy was live on the TFB channel. That's what you said, Neil.
It's Celebrate Truth, Robbie Davidson. So they're allowing him to broadcast from there. Who knows? Robbie Davidson probably gave him his channel. But that's where this TFE, that's where Will Duffy is live right now, spilling nonsense.
Wow, Will Duffy is on. That's like a humiliation ritual, isn't it? To have Will Duffy on your, sorry about the noise, Will Duffy on your channel broadcasting live. That's a humiliation. That's all you could call it.
Yeah, but this is supposed to be like that. I told you already. There's supposed to be an idea that there's been a disbandment or whatever you want to call it, an exodus, right? So if you've got people in the chat say dead channel, and it's a former flat earther now turned glober, then he's there falling on his sword as we speak. That's the idea, to create that impression. And as I say, I don't care. Earth's measured flat. The argument was never an argument. We'll still be here. My namesake for the show will remain, because as long as there are globe believers, then the namesake remains, because there's a perception that there's a debate. When they get here, they find out pretty quickly there isn't one. Earth's measured flat. Okay, you think it's a ball? Give us your ball measurements. How long? Give us it in microseconds before they give us a flat Earth measurement. It's pretty much immediate, because that's what Earth measurements are. flat. So, if you believe you're on a ball,
Yeah,
go ahead.
go on. Well, just so you know, you may not be aware, Nathan, because that's but I put out a community post recently, and I asked, does anyone have evidence that they can validate of the observer position in the Blackpool Swan photo or whatever? And all I got was a heap of rubbish back. No one came back with anything, right? I've also asked prior to that in the video, would there be anybody be willing to go and measure the height of Dow Craig from Southport with the angle, right? Now, they won't do this because to do that, it means as soon as they measure an angle, an elevation
Yeah, he's sneaky.
it's over. Right? So none of them will do it.
Of course not. Any of you just want to just toddle along and measure a little bit of flat Earth with an angle? Just a little bit of flat Earth. Just because we just want to talk about the globe after you go and measure Earth flat with that angle. I promise we'll talk about the globe after you go and measure Earth flat with that. Nothing sneaky about it.
Exactly. And I was saying, we'll see which the angle suits best, a flat or globe Earth. And I'm trying to get them to do it when they're running away. They will not do it. No, they won't do it. I said, look, just get the money together, pay some surveyors, right? Everyone will contribute to this.
How much did it cost,
I'm sure.
Brian, right? How much is a trip to here? 200 quid to England.
To England? A couple of hundred, I suppose, yeah.
A couple of £100. How about Brian? I've never met Brian, right? I'd love to go and meet Brian, but I just can't afford it. I've got to be honest, right? I'm talking about my mortgage now. I can't pay it constantly. Brian and I have never met. It'd be quite convenient if we met for various reasons that we talk about behind the scenes that I won't go into. But the point is, why don't we do it? But we'll get sponsored. Not by our own, right? We want the money from Globe Believers. Maybe from Duffy. I reckon we could do it for £2,000, right? 1% of what it costs to go to Antarctica. And we'll do just what they did.
Yeah.
We'll get a few flat Earth elevation angles to the sun while we're at it. It may not be up for 24 hours, but just one measurement to it, same as theirs in Antarctica, will show how Earth gets measured flat. Like McToon did. We'll just measure one elevation angle to the sun and say this is what he measured loads of all day. They're flat. That's an angle. Along a baseline.
Well, I've already contacted some surveyors.
Guys, it's an embarrassment. I mean, but for us not being censored, like into non-existence, fortunately, I was not dumb enough to talk about COVID. I assume you were the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't talk about it at all. I had nothing to do with it.
And it's because one reason. As much as you and I, Brian and I will often joke because we feel slight shame. I'm talking for you. I hope you'll agree at the end of this statement. For our minor, and I do mean minor, tendency towards conspiracies. Now, it's a folly for me and Brian, I'm speaking on his behalf, but because we do it occasionally, very, very rarely, right, we're a little bit ashamed and we'll be like, oh, we're both conspiratards. In other words, we'll overcompensate for our tiny little dipping of the toe in the water of conspiracy. But the rest of the people around us, on the whole, they're not dipping their toe in conspiracies, they're full-on conspiratards. Therefore, when something like COVID comes along, of course they're going to jump in with both feet. Of course! They all lost their channels. Now me, I'm far more hesitant. I'm a skeptic at heart, right?
Exactly. I'm the same. I knew to stay away from it. Even in 2019, I remember us telling people in 2019 to stay away from this thing. Just don't get involved in it. Don't start making videos about it. And no one listened. And some really good flat earth channels, like Red Pill Philosophy was brilliant. And he lost his channel. He had 60,000 people on a flat earth channel on YouTube in 2019 was really, really good. And he lost his channel because of the COVID. Now, in fairness, he made brilliant videos on COVID, but him and many others should have stayed away from it. And they didn't. And they lost their channels. And it was like a carrot on a stick. Do you know what I mean? Because they knew flat earthers will definitely run at this, and they did.
Well,
And it's a pity, but they did. Me and you stayed away from it. Absolutely.
Well, I don't want to pretend like because I was clairvoyant. It was because I just read the YouTube terms of service. So I have the YouTube terms of service updates to my email directly, and I read them. And it's my career. Of course I'm going to take it seriously. When they change a rule, right, and I do mean change something in the... It's a bit like in The Matrix where you see the black cat twice. You're like, oh, what's going on here then? There's been a change of rules, has there? Oh, yeah, what's this then? Okay, reading. Okay, what you're saying is don't talk about it. So this is censorship, plain and simple. Okay, I understand. If I want to keep my channel, I'll toe the frickin' line. Yeah? That's what the rule change said. No, I didn't say that. I'm obviously paraphrasing massively. I'm not even being specific. I'm still so indoctrinated to be terrified of it that I'm so vague and non-specific even now talking about it. But the point is, if you value your channel, you obey the censorship rules. And if you don't obey the censorship rules, then they've got a right to remove you because you broke the rule. Now, I told Arwin, it's a rule, Arwin. Just don't, it's a rule. It's simple. It's in the terms of service. Now, typically with Arwin, I didn't do that. I only note this specifically because he didn't lose his channel, and Arwin's a full-on conspiratard. Why didn't he lose his channel? I suspect because I damn well told him. Most of the time, I used to hint at him and try and encourage him, my father coming out in me, to go and do the research himself. Like, well, you know, maybe there might be a rule in the terms of service that would stop you from talking about those things. Maybe go and have a look. Have you looked? Have you ever read the terms of service? Things like that to try and encourage him to do it. He never did. When it came to COVID, it's one of those, like you say, double black cat moment where you go, okay, Arwin's my friend. I better just tell him outright. Like, this is a rule. Just pay heed or you'll lose your bleeding channel. It's just that simple. So when people who are like, no, right, it's more important that people should know the activism. So YouTube's yours then, yeah? You own YouTube. You don't? What are you doing then? Oh, bye-bye. Oh, it didn't take long then. You've already gone. Bye. I didn't even get chance to suggest you had a look. But those people were never reading the terms of service to begin with. Now, one day, it'll probably be by that same sword that I die on YouTube if somebody ends up catching me out on the terms of service. You just have to try and stay ahead of the game. And they make it easy, right? They give you updates. So it's not like it's just most people go, I've got to read something. There's been a terms of service update and whatever. What? I've actually got to tick and click to say I've read it. Oh, I don't want to do that. Oh, it won't let me back in unless I do. Fine. I'll tick it and say I've read it. Like, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's going to help you. Read it. Nah. Most people haven't got the time.
Oh, they won't do the thing, no. I remember specifically remember us saying to stay away from it, right? That it's a distraction from from the end goal, which is what we're doing, right? And do you think that they would listen? No, they didn't want to hear. They didn't want to listen.
You know, they called it a black swan event.
Yes, and they said flatten the curve. They were throwing a lot of phrases out there.
Yeah, flatten the curve. The end of COVID is on the horizon, and it's a black swan event.
Exactly.
I remember.
Fortunately, those rules got changed. They didn't want it, I had to be careful about it. The way I used to say it at the time was, don't meddle with current magic tricks. Yeah? And I think a fellow Irishman, what's his name? Thomas Sheridan. He's like, he would refer to needlecraft. He got away with talking about it more than anybody. And I actually, because I can't be asked to look into these things, after a certain point, you're just like, what are the draconian limitations that are being placed upon us? And how can I I remember you and I having this conversation, and how can I get away with subverting them without anyone noticing? In other words, I don't want to be a rule breaker, but I do want my kids to use the park. You know what I mean? So how am I going to get around these rules? And I remember talking about it with you, and you're like, it's very difficult. And you were saying that you've been caught by the Guardia, and you're just trying to laugh it off with them when you're out and about.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I was getting at one point it got ridiculous because it was all in the same area, like within the same radius of 15, 20 miles, let's just say. And probably 15 miles. So you were going into the same garden again. It's like, that's you know again. That's what I was getting off. Yeah, I'm mess up. This kind of thing. You know what I mean? Cop again. You know what I mean? Breaking the rules.
That was
But
it. It's the same copper.
Them than straight up.
Exactly, it's the same card.
Yeah. 3 times.
I mean, I thought it was quite fun because while it was annoying watching what I saw as, I don't want to be too offensive because there might be people who are listening that are like, I did that and you were looking at me. And you're like, yeah, I was, yeah. I just saw them as flapping seals, you know, and they were all clapping. 6 feet apart from each other. I felt like it was the lowest point in humanity's existence, from my perspective, right? As I looked on, I'm like, my God, is this really what humanity have come to? You're so subservient that you'll do this. Oh, my God. And I don't want to shame my wife, but she went out. She's like, well, I don't get to talk to the neighbours. If I don't go out, I'll just not get to talk to them. Now, me, I'm quite cold. I'll be honest. I'm not that concerned about the neighbours. I was more like rolling my eyes than concerned that I hadn't spoken to them for a little while. You know what I mean? Whereas my wife, genuinely, she's quite sociable. She did actually want to go. She wasn't concerned about the 6-foot rule, but she definitely got, you know, permission from people to be out and about talking to others and seemingly breaking the rules they've arbitrarily put in place. That was the effery, I won't swear, that you observe and go, they're giving you one rule and then immediately telling you to break it. It's bizarre, but that's control. And they're just testing the limits of control. It's weird.
Control. They had people go out the window at a certain time and say a certain phrase, and people did it.
Yeah, they did that here too, about the NHS. Yeah, weird behaviour.
Yeah, it was a very dark time in human existence. It was like a kind of a jump. When I say jump, you say how high. It was basically that situation, and it was like, you know when there's a cowboy shooting at some other, and he's making someone dance for me kind of thing, and that's what they were doing with the public, and everyone was going along with it. It was shameful. People grassing up on their neighbours when their neighbours are having a few people over for a drinks or a party or something. It was ridiculous.
They let people die alone in hospitals because they won't let my family members in to see their mother. But here's the thing, they got it going, and then they had people enforcing it for them. That's how sick it really was.
Yeah, it's compliance testing or training, depending on which way you want to look at it. How compliant are they? And in terms of the positive influence that social media can have, I say positive, it's detrimental to the powers that should not be in this hypothetical example. And the powers that should not be are just us. So there's overlap. So from my memory, there was an incident where Boris Johnson and members of Parliament here in the UK were having a party during COVID lockdowns when everyone else was suffering. Why? Well, because they're no different to us. They're just part of the system that we are all part of when we are controlled by this intricate system that sometimes you can get a bit big for your boots and think that your particular aspect of lies and effery are the most important aspect of it, and they're not. Heliocentrism is just one layer of a control structure that's been layered up in multiple different ways from multiple different perspectives. And it'll have people defend that particular aspect of it, like some other different governmental aspect of control, in this case, COVID, is governed and policed by a different group of people. And sometimes there's overlap, and so it all goes on. It's a tightly weaved web that just keeps the sheeple from tearing themselves apart with mostly lies and deceit. And for the majority of the history that we've looked into, it's people with the best of intentions. We often talk about Copernicus and the Copernican heliocentric version of the world we reify, or past tense, reified, or for the sake of the namesake of flat earth debate, present tense for all the numpties out there who believe they're on a ball, they reify it in present tense. But the existence in the first instance of those reifiable entities like heliocentrism are only there because of the best of intentions for people trying to explain movements in the sky and things of that sort. Well, that's not somebody saying, I will control the people 190 years from now with a force that isn't a force, that a man will tell them they can think of as a force, called Musa. I forsake it. Go forth, O demon, make sure Musa tells them they can think of it as a force. No. They had the best of intentions, and so did Musa. But he's the modern-day version. You know, Copernicus or anybody else that's given us this nonsense world of spinning balls, after measuring Earth flat, one tiny element of a control structure that is all around us. The Matrix has got, you know, simulacra and simulation riddled through it in terms of the storytelling, and there's a reason for it. There's a reason it's good and people like it. That's predominantly why. Because when you think about how the world is structured around you, there's a reason you can have stories like 1984 and The Matrix make perfect sense. Yeah? But for the control structures around you, you'd tear yourself apart and we'd have an uncivilized society. But often when you look into those control structures, they're riddled with idiocy, nonsense, waffle, and what seems like deceit. But you get back to the overarching question. Is this done through malice? Or is this done because the guy who came up with it had the best of intentions but ultimately was just an idiot? You know, the idea that the world could be a sphere, bending the very measurement of a flat surface to give you the angle to create it, is nonsense, isn't it? Go ahead.
Wait a second. What do you mean uncivilized? So you're telling me it was an uncivilized society in the 1200s, in the 1100s, in the year 1000?
I don't know. I only have the
Who
word...
weren't on a ball then?
Yeah, but I only have the word of history for how civilized they were. And we've just discussed how uncivilized Brian and I deemed the society we cast our eyes over during COVID to be. And it was a particularly low point, I feel. A low point for several generations. I don't think anybody would disagree if they had the same onlook or outlook of the world that everyone else was blind to when it was occurring. Very uncivilized, regardless. But that seems to me that you've taken advantage of something that might keep the world from tearing itself apart and just exploited the control that you then have. And there's a delicate balance. Within those control structures, there's the ability for a man, or woman, it's just a person, to step in and start controlling massive numbers of people through whatever means they see fit. And if they're rich enough and powerful enough to step into those positions, they can manipulate the people around them with the words that they say. That's how the world runs, and nobody knows why they're even here. I had to contemplate these things recently because of my father's recent death. You suddenly start to contemplate these things. And you go, was my dad a good man? Yes, he was. Did he do bad things? Nobody's perfect, etc., etc. But then you really look at it and go, do any of us know why we're here? Not really. And when we get here, do we know what our purpose is? No. So we're all kind of ambling our way through our existence, hoping we're doing the right thing. And most of the time, we haven't got a clue. We're just guessing. You know what I mean? Now, I think it was you, Neil, that was saying that it's only the animals that know that they're, you know, created by God. We don't know that. So hence we're fumbling our way, thinking we're doing the right thing. So it makes perfect sense that we've got all these stupid, nonsensical explanations for systems that are way beyond the complexity of an existence that we could ever fathom. And every time we try and look at it, it gets more complicated the more microscopic we go in terms of how we look. It gets ever more complicated. Shouldn't that tell you something? You're never going to be able to understand it at a level that your brain could ever comprehend as an individual. Yeah? The created world that the God gave us to live in, to ponder and wander around aimlessly going, what the bloody hell am I doing here? You know, it's far too complicated for men to understand. So we create bullshit examples, nonsense waffle, to try and explain it. And then other men come along and go, I reckon I could control men with this. And so it goes on.
Exactly.
The thing is, sorry, Neil.
He was just agreeing.
No, I'm just agreeing with Nathan. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the thing is this, right? There's certain information concerning the world we don't have. So we end up with having only measurement to determine what the world is, right? The geometry measurement, right? Distance, etc., right? So other than that, we don't know. Like, nobody knows what the sun is, right? Anyone who thinks they do is a fool. Anyone who says they do are either a fool or they're a bullshitter, right? Just that nobody knows what anything in the sky is. Nobody knows what any of these things are composed of, how they do what they do, why they're doing what they're doing. You know what I mean? Whatever. We also technically don't even know what the horizon is. We know what it's not. It's not the leading geometric edge of a globe. But that doesn't mean anything, does it? Because just when you think you have it figured out, you don't. It does something that was not part of what you expected it to do. So our knowledge of the world we live in is really just given to us by geometry and scientific method. And our detailing of natural law. After that, we're completely blind, aren't we? We don't know, like.
Yeah, whenever we get to answering a question with the scientific method, obviously it has benefited the world in terms of quantum mechanics and semiconductors and computing power and all those things that have benefited us. And obviously in medicine there's a list that's as long as your arm in terms of scientific endeavours that have benefited humanity and advanced humanity. But they're still, when you actually dice them down, very, very limited. The focus of the scientific method, the scope, is super limited because it's hyper-specific. When you ask a question about why did this specific thing occur, and you narrow it down to, for example, diffraction of light, knowledge of which path. Now, in simple English, it's very complicated. If I say the knowledge of which path causes the wave function to collapse, you go, bloody hell, what does that even mean? Well, I'm talking about the scientific endeavours to explain light diffraction. Well, what does that mean? Well, why does light break apart when it goes through a very tight gap to the point where you can see light that should just travel through a single slit and go through the other side and still be a bit of light on the other side? It doesn't. It breaks apart. That's called diffraction. And in an endeavour to try and find out why that happens, there was a scientific discovery in terms of the which path information, knowledge thereof, being the cause of the collapse of the diffraction pattern. That is to say that you can cause diffraction to not occur if you know the path of the light. Very complicated stuff that gave us our quantum mechanics and computers. But that just explained diffraction. It's a really, really, really specific part. It's not explaining light as a general. Far from it. One teeny tiny little aspect of one thing light does under really specific circumstances, and just by figuring out that one tiny little thing so hyper specific within a genre of light, we got all of our technology, a lot of it from that, just from being able to be so hyper specific. But that means it's narrow. Now that's good because you're getting answers and it's empirical. So I'm not going to knock the scientific method for its hyper specificity. But by the same token, it's really specific though, isn't it? Yeah. Well, that means it's not broad. No. You know what I'm getting at? You can't expand that out.
Yeah, you can't then start saying, oh, because of this, light is blah, blah, blah. You can't. You know this much about its behaviour, and that's what you know. And that allows us to do great things in our human world, but all our technology and software means nothing because we still don't have a clue what light is really.
Exactly.
And we certainly don't know what the world is, and et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. We find out a tiny piece about a tiny little specific behaviour of an entity of our world, in this case light, and it advances us by leaps and bounds. But for the guys who are doing it, they undoubtedly, as I'm going to suggest now, realise the awful truth upon these sorts of realisation. We know so little. We are so ignorant. That's what it really highlights, doesn't it?
Yeah. And the fact that...
Sorry.
Go ahead, I'll go after you.
No, you go in here. You go in here.
Well, when we say Earth is measured flat, yeah, we know that Earth is measured flat. But in the Bible, it clearly states God questions Job and says, where were you when I measured the Earth? Tell me if you can know. So I don't think we can know just how big Earth is. And I believe that's why they put us on this freaking ball and said, this is where you are and this is everything. Nothing else to see here.
They just kept finding more. If you look back at our history, no matter which way you dice it, they find more land. So they, at some point, go, well, if we find these countries and they've got more people there and they become the developing countries, formerly third world countries, often they become a bit of a problem. You have to incorporate them into the fold, and sometimes they cause trouble or unstabilise your economy. There's all sorts of things that you then have to try and mitigate for. Well, if we could just limit how much world there is, that would never happen again. We'd only have to contend with what we've already got in terms of the peoples that's provided and, you know, the developing countries, we'll call them, rather than third worlds. People won't get suspicious because that's all we've got. That's all. It's all tied up like in the Truman Show when she pulls down the map. You don't need to be an explorer. We've already found it all. Yeah.
Yeah. The not knowing how, it's not any kind of new information or anything new. This has been spoken about in this arena for a long time now, but the not knowing part terrifies people. So you have to give people the impression that we do know, and that this thing is this thing, and the Earth is this big, and this is what the Earth is, this is what the Sun is, this is how far away it is, and they're okay with the mystery about what's out there in a heliocentric universe, right? They're fine with that as long as we do know what the Earth is and what its geometry is and what the Sun is and all this. But if you take all those things away, they're not okay with the little we actually do know, which is far less than any of that, because that's only made up horse manure. The truth is we know very, very little. And it terrifies people.
Right, and that's why Job 38, let me read it real quick. It says, then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now your loins like a man, for I will demand of you, and you will answer me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Declare, if you have understanding. Who has laid the measure thereof, if you know? Or who has stretched out the line upon it, whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Where are they? Or who has laid the cornerstone thereof? So God is basically saying, buddy, you weren't around. You have no right to speak because you're outside of my knowledge.
Gird up your loins.
Yeah.
But when I stretched, you weren't there when I stretched out the line, or that was a good,
Exactly.
That's a good part of it.
Yeah, you weren't.
You stretch a line, it only means one thing. Sorry.
I was just going to say,
Or laid the foundations.
There is a certain type of people that do the opposite, though. That's the thing. Yes, the divide is clear, right? And even as I'm about to say this, I've only just contemplated this, right? Think back to the amount of times I've said that there's a gleeful delight in me not knowing, as opposed to anti-flat earth brethren, as I compared them, who are terrified when they perceivably might not know what the sun is. It's not even that they don't know, they think they definitely do, but there's a potential that they might not, and that, even that limited amount of not knowing terrifies our anti-flat earth friends, doesn't it? Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, that
Absolutely.
means that there's the people who would potentially, not me, I mean, I'm too lazy. I mean, maybe it's not lazy, I should stop being so self-deprecating, but there's something in me that likes sitting here rather than going to somewhere like Antarctica. That doesn't mean that I in any way communicate with Will Duffy. I didn't. He's just a liar. But there's a certain aspect of the journey that you could take to the so-called third worlds, where previously we found black people, we've found yellow people, we've found brown people, we've found orange people. Would we find green people if we kept on going? And therefore they've mocked it with the little green men? Because it does seem to be the case that when you travel out, you land on land and the people there have a different colour. Spanning from white through every single colour of the rainbow thus far, well, other than green. So why not pretend that if we went to outer space, we'd find the green ones, which seems logically next, right? But point to the sky and say, well, out there where the new worlds are, the light and the sky now, instead of the lands as they were formerly known, the worlds, you say, well, that's where the little green men are in the new worlds in the sky, because the lights are the land, the soil is in the sky now. Stop looking towards the horizon where we formerly found land. If you want more land, there's a limitation to our spherical surface, therefore look to the sky, and then you have to create narratives about men in the sky and what kind of men are they. Next colour in line, green.
Yeah, it is. I think we're dealing with a lot of people on our opposing side who are the type of people who want to be know-it-alls. They want to be telling people what this thing is and that thing is and how this works and how that works.
No, that's not it. Have you not met Craig? He's quite humble. Craig McNeil.
Yeah, that's the thing, you see. Oh, they're not humble. They want to be given. They want to be telling everyone else what is what, and this is this and that is that, etc. And when you start taking all that stuff that they want to use as knowledge that props them up in society or in the eyes of the ignorant as being the know-it-alls or the knowledgeable ones, you take away that power, and that's what's happening. No. So if Craig has to accept at any point, just use Craig McNeil as an example, if he has to accept at any point that all the information we were given concerning the sun is a load of lies and nobody actually knows anything about it, straight away that's a whole chunk of knowledge that he can't then use to prop himself up in the eyes of whoever. So it's nearly, to admit that we don't know what the sun is for him means that he has to actually then take willingly leave go of some of the power that he feels he has. And that's it. Because let's be honest. Go on.
Well, the only bit that you were vague about was that for someone else, and again, it always comes back to this, right? So we'll keep on. I was going to start widening the net and talking about Professor Dave Explains or Simon Dan, just so it's not like we're picking on Craig. So I'd rather do that because I don't want to be perceived to be picking on Craig because I don't want to, right? Yes, it's fun for a few minutes, but that's not the objective here. The guys that want to prop themselves up because they're terrified of not knowing. So we're talking about Simon Dan, Craig McNeil. Give me another one just so we've got three. MC Toon, Professor Dave Explains. All of these people. They're going to have to. I forgot my point now. Now I've tried to get a third person. Where was I bloody going with this?
You were saying I was okay on, but I was vague about one point I was saying concerning them having to.
Yes. Exactly. That person is themselves. So most people don't realise this because falsely, if you're listening, right, if you're the audience member, I'm talking to you, right, you think everyone around you is concerned about what you do, and you're wrong. They don't care. I'll give you an example, and I'll use me as a self-deprecating example. So, for example, there's songs made about me and where are the guns. So there's two ways you could look at that. You could look at it in a sort of narcissistic, well, everyone loves me, they're all talking about me kind of way, and you'd be wrong. Or you could look at it that, they're all, laughing at me because they think I thought there was guns going to stop them from going on their very highly organised trip to measure Earth flat. Therefore, everyone's talking about how stupid Nathan Oakley is when they do the Where Is the Gun song, right? Wrong again. Nobody gives a shit about me. Most people aren't giving me a second thought, and it's only when I'm literally in front of them, like now when I'm broadcasting, that they'll even give me a second thought. Once the show's over, no one's thinking about Nathan Oakley. I mean, they might ponder me for half a second, but then they've got something far more important to deal with than me. And do you know what that is? Themselves. Everyone is the star in their own little performance. Now, you started with Craig as the example, so we'll get back onto him. And I don't want to pick on you, Craig, if you end up listening to this. It's not, you just happen to be the example, right? When Craig is like, well, if I don't know what the sun is, then I'm not going to be able to lord it over next man when I'm talking about the sun, because I won't know what it is. It's like, no, understand this, Craig, in this example, or anybody else, I'm undone, right? Nobody cares whether or not you know, because to them, they're the star of their show, and they're worried that you're thinking about them. Yeah? As opposed to the other way around. They're not thinking about you and whether or not you know about the sun. They're worried about what you think about them, because they're the star of their own show, and all they're thinking about is themselves while you babble on about the sun. Worried about whether or not you're going to get to lord it over them, because you're the star of your own show, and the only person you get to lord it over really is yourself. It ain't a dress rehearsal. This is the show, and there's no other person in your head, just you. So when you perceive that you need to lord it over people with this knowledge, in this case the sun, you don't. It's irrelevant. Who cares? Nobody is the answer. And when I say there's a hidden hand, who's the hidden hand? Well, who was the one who kept the system alive in terms of a perpetuation of something that didn't benefit me when it came to heliocentrism? Me. Yeah, you could argue that the propaganda was always there, and I can blame the poster maker for the globe Earth when it's the Blue Marble Planet Earth documentary that David Attenborough was in, or the producers of the flick when it's Superman flying around the sphere Earth. I could blame all them and their perceived propaganda, but it's not beneficial to me. It's my narrative in my world that I'm concerned about. Surely I should have given it more attention. I didn't, because it wasn't threatening me at the time, or something I could eat, or something I could produce children with. Not to be too crude. So therefore I didn't worry too much. Now notice on that list Craig wasn't on it. Yeah? So therefore I didn't give Craig much thought in those things, very basic that they were. Yeah? Threat, food, or a mate. Yeah? Where's Craig in that? Nowhere. So did it matter that Craig didn't know what the sun was in that simple equation of me and how important I am in my own little play that I'm the star of?
No.
No. Dead.
Well, the thing is this, right? See, the problem we have with our opposition is, if we just take that one example, doesn't matter who it is. I use Craig as the example, as Craig likes to be an order, right? The thing is this: if he had to admit to himself that there's even a chance that they have it completely wrong concerning the sun and what it is and how it does what it does and what it's composed of, then every other part of heliocentrism, as far as not the globe itself, but every other part of the sky, besides the moon and some of the planets and things, are up for grabs. Because all of their rhetoric concerning stars is all based on their original star, which is, in their world, the sun. Now, the sun and the stars are not the same thing, right, from our point of view, but they've turned them into the same thing. So straight away, it's not just that he has to then admit to himself that he doesn't know what the sun is. He then has to admit that all their claimed knowledge about stars and what they are and what they're composed of, because there's always a knock-on effect in that world, in their paradigm. You can't admit that you don't know about something or that something was wrong without there being a knock-on effect in some other part when it comes to something like that. So it's like, if I admit to this, then there's a whole kind of like domino effect that'll happen. You know, it's like with the black swan, right? The black swan. As soon as they admit they understand the black swan, that's the end of every part of heliocentrism, because it all starts and ends with the Earth being a globe, and that ends the Earth being a globe. So everything ends from that. So that's like the original domino. If we see it that way. Now the sun is not the original domino, but for them to admit that they don't know what the sun is, or there's something wrong in their knowledge, or they got it all wrong, and they were wrong to say it was composed of hydrogen and helium plasma, etc., etc., etc. Suddenly, that means all their other claimed knowledge and expansions of that claimed knowledge that NASA and everyone else would pump out, all that has to be wrong as well, because it's all based off of the sun. The same way as the distances to all their celestial body, all their stars, as all starts and ends with their distance to the sun, which actually starts with a claimed distance to Venus, which starts with the pre-assumption that Venus is a sphere and Earth, and which starts with the pre-assumption that Earth is a sphere, which starts with the pre-assumption that Earth is a sphere of a particular size. So
I haven't gone far
two
back enough.
dominoes in.
Yeah. You haven't
Well,
gone back far enough, because that all starts with a flat Earth measurement.
It does originally. See that like that originally starts with that. But what I'm saying is that I'm not going back to the first domino with the sun, but the sun is only a few dominoes in. So say if they start going, we're wrong about the sun, then that means they're wrong about a whole lot of other stuff because they built a lot of what they would call knowledge based off of what they believed the sun was and how far away it was.
I'll acknowledge your point first before I do that next time. Yes, even though, as you put it, the sun is a few dominoes in from the flat Earth prerequisite that will lead to the sun in that line of dominoes, the dominoes that follow that sun domino are tremendously long, and there's a lot of them that they'd have to immediately concede based on them not knowing what the sun is. Now, I'll come back to my original point, which is, I think that's wonderful. It makes me feel like a little kid when you go, well, what is it then? I don't know. Maybe I'll be the one to find out. That's pretty exciting. I'm going to round out shortly, though. Is there anything else anyone wants to add before I do?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to throw in just that was why I was saying that. For you and me, we can go, actually, we're wrong. We don't know what that is. And it doesn't end up with the collapse of a load of dominoes. It just means we don't know what that is. For them, they can't do that because it means a lot of dominoes are going to fall.
Right. The majority of the heliocentric model, now that they've scaled it, at least in modern times, is dependent on them knowing what the sun is and how far it is in that heliocentric version of the world that does span from an origination of a flat Earth angle measurement to the sun to create that domino, a few dominoes along, that then moves on to, equatorial planes in motion around the sun. So you need AU, you need the scaling factor, you need Copernicus, you need Huygens, you need Kepler, and all of those dominoes are dependent on knowing what it is. If you don't, and you accept that, you're like, well, then you essentially are writing off everything that you currently have on the table, and you're good with that, right? Well, obviously not, because they don't want to give up a damn thing, do they? So, any more for any more?
Hold on.
Go on.
Yeah, we as flat earthers come in and knock down all the dominoes.
Yeah. Any more for any more? Any notes from Discord before we round out the live show? Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, just exactly what Neil said. Exactly. We actually come in and we knock over the first one. And then they all fall after. And that's the problem. We bring them back to the very first one and show them that that's on shaky ground. And that's the problem. Thank you.
Any words from Discord before I do round out? No? A huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and all that good stuff. If you're watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Right, I am going to go and see a man about a dog. Can you guys be responsible to keep talking? Or do I need to pause the recording?
Me and Brian will hold it together.
Oh, yeah.
I want to talk about some of the stuff
I'll disappear. I'll go immediately then, as you've said yes. Don't ask me something immediately.
No, talking to Brian. Go do what you got to do. So yeah, Brian, yesterday really good. Where do you hear that stuff about the whole thing, man? Perspective and horizon and the Rayleigh criterion. Outstanding, man.
Are you talking about the video?
No. What we went through yesterday, what's going to be in the book.
Oh, right. I don't know. But did you do the book yesterday?
Yeah, I sent you a message. I said the Hangout's open. It was open since Craig opened one up yesterday at like 3:30 in the morning, my time. So everybody came in like around 12:30 and they got busy. And very impressive, Adam. Very impressive, I must say.
Oh, that's good. I knew Adam would make a good of it. QE was there or not, I take it.
Yeah, QE loved it. I thought he was going to resist, because I don't think he wanted to at the beginning, right? From the last time. But
he
got into
against
it.
There. Yeah, go on.
No, that leads right into the Black Swan. Chicken great. I didn't know. Maybe I knew, but I didn't know because QE said there's two reasons why there's a horizon. And one of them is our height. determines the horizon.
Yeah, this weather and
Yeah, weather,
elevation
stuff like that. Yeah.
and the optics. 3 reasons.
Yeah, now height.
But there's no distance to it. You know what I mean? That's
No.
the misnomer.
No, it's that's they're going over. There ain't no distance to it. It's not geometric. It's physical, yeah, we see it, but it's not tangible where we can get to it and mark it, right?
Well, the problem with it is that it can change in a few minutes. So I'm trying to measure even a dip angle to it is pointless because, like their opposition were always trying to measure dip angles to it, and then trying to add in as much 7 over or greater than 7/6 as they needed to, right? But the reason they're doing that is because it's constantly changing. So it's changing its position. So even over a flat plane, you're still in a position with it where it's going to change its position. So take an angle to it now and an angle to it in 10 minutes time, and they'd be more likely 2 different angles.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
So now, this funny thing with this, because this Buck Sodbuster comes in a chat all the time with this dip nonsense. Now, the dip, when you're doing celestial navigation, you measure the dip from port, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now he's trying to say
No, but
it measures Earth
you're not
curve.
getting a dip. You're not getting a dip. No, you're not getting a dip from port. That's not what you're doing.
You're measuring, though, right?
You're just measuring a vertical height above the water.
Right. And it will be the same after you travel out, say, 50 miles out into the ocean, right?
Well, it doesn't matter. It's your height above the water below the boat. You're measuring your elevation above the water. No matter it doesn't matter if the height goes in, goes out, the water rises or drops. The boat is rising or dropping with that. So that's going to be a constant. So did he say that they take a dip angle at ports?
No. He's saying the reason why they do dip angle is for the curvature of Earth.
No. It's ask them to produce the mathematics that supports that.
He's just a time waster, Brian. Just a time waster. He says
But I
that.
removed him off my channel.
Yeah, he says that when I do the flight thing at him, I said plane flying 20,000 feet level for 500 miles. End the story. He said, it's measured off a curve.
Nah,
I said,
he's an idiot.
Okay, how can you measure it off a curve? Okay, I'll give you, let's entertain you. You're at one point on this freaking globe where you could measure straight up 20,000 feet. That's where the plane, boom, he passes you. Now where's the next 20,000 feet? How are you going to measure that off a curve? Dopey.
Nah, everything is like you can't measure elevations or altitudes off of curves. You have to have a horizontal.
Right. You ain't going to get the next measurement, is my point.
No, he's not going to get
all
any.
you want to say about, it's measured off a curve, then you have to demonstrate that. Because if it's measured off a curve, you're not going to fly level 20,000 feet in the air for 500 miles.
Yeah, but now. Thank you. Thank you. No, this is why I made the videos about planes coming into land. Right? Before they come into land, they do a top-up descent. So they're descending the altitude. So they end up 1,000 feet above the height of the airport. So above the elevation of the airport. And then they use that the final 1,000 feet for the landing, right? But they're descending nose down, right? That means if they're descending and they have to travel, depending on where the airport is and the elevation of the airport and what altitude they're at, there's a separate factors to it. But it could be anything from 100 to 160, maybe even up to 200 miles, right? That they would spend descending, depending on how high up they are and the planes and different things. The point being, right, that for them to do that, they have to account for more than the altitude that the plane is at for them to do it in their paradigm, right?
Okay. Right, I got it. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
But in reality, because you want to have the drop amount, because you can't have just the elevation of the plane. It's not going to work, right? So consequently, they don't do that. I mean, in reality, that doesn't happen. Nobody accounts for any extra anything. They only account all the mathematics for it are all geometry, and the opposite of the triangle they're using will be the altitude of the plane. So they're not going to be doing any. They don't add in anything else. They don't account for anything else. They purely account for the altitude the plane is at, and that's it, and nothing else. So.
Oh, Adam's here. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely.
So they'd have to account for more than the altitude to do that, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, he's just a time waster. He likes to come and chat and just try and deceive people. But he calls me a coward because I time him out. Well, if you're not going to address what I said 3 or 4 times, then I'm going to time you out, because now you just hear this pure freaking rhetoric, and it's false.
Well, I removed him off my channel. I'll tell you why I removed him. Because I gave him the opportunity, right? He was making claims about GPS, and I gave him the opportunity to support his claims. And when Bush came to shove, right, he actually presented a load of stuff that he was trying to call geometry, which wasn't geometry. It was some whatchamacallit, coordinates. He didn't even adhere to anything. And when he did that, and he just basically lied, I removed him. I said, right, you're gone. Because I put up a lot of rubbish out of him before that. And then he came along and tried to tell, I said, right, give me the geometry, right, for the claims he was making concerning GPS. And he couldn't do it because he knew that the geometry doesn't work for him. And he doesn't have the geometry. But he tried to just throw a load of garble at me, which is the very thing that I debunk. That's the very thing I'm pointing out is all wrong. And he tried to use that as a defense. You know what I mean? So I just removed him. So I had enough of him. Because he wasn't able to be honest. When push came to shove, he wasn't able to be honest.
Yeah, and he cries that you removed him because he's holding your feet to the fire. That's why
he's
you
not.
removed him.
He didn't do anything. He didn't hold anything. He posted a stuff that wasn't geometry and tried to call it geometry. He's a total liar. So I have to go on mute for a moment. Maybe Adam will talk.
What's up, Adam? Yeah, you're busy.
Both.
Great job yesterday. I wanted to tell you that. Man, that's going to be something else in that book.
Oh, yesterday's. It's amazing what you can do, isn't it, really? And when the thing is, we've done another chapter as well. We're progressing really well, actually, at the moment. It's good. I might share it with Nathan when I get in. I'm literally just having the alarms changed at the shop, so I'm sat about kind of hanging on till that's done. Then I'll come out and I'll show you. It'll be quite interesting. But yeah, it went well last night, didn't it, Neil? That.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so informative. It's going to be. I mean, I'm just happy for the people that are going to buy the book, and the Globers that think that they're just going to get Nathan's yelling on Flat Earth Debate, which is foolish anyway. Boy, are they in for a surprise.
Getting a proper schooling on the horizon now. I did it, Brian.
Yes.
It reads beautiful.
Yeah, I told Brian. I said, where do you hear this?
Yeah, that's good to hear, Adam. Because it needed to be addressed. Like you can't put out a book and not address that, you know.
When I get back, I'm going to mute for a bit because I've got bits to do. But I'll read it through with you because I want to read through it again myself. So.
Sounds good.
I've done half. I couldn't help myself. I didn't get to bed. So I finished rewriting all the aluminum stooping stuff that QE had given us. So that's virtually done as well. So, finishing off your final year project. Oh, Nate, you all right, pal?
Very well. How are you?
Not bad at all. Not bad at all.
Very good. I'll just get my breath back before I draw on a conversation.
Well, I'm disappearing, and I'll probably be 40 minutes or something like that before I'm in. And then I'll go through what we've done with you if you guys are still about. But I'll mute
definitely.
up for now if that's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this, Nathan. I thought there was a good show today.
They're all good shows.
Yeah, but today was I felt some energy again, you know? Just didn't drag on. It was a lot of good discussions. The energy's coming back, and man, this book is going to knock some people's socks off. You know, the ballers think that this book that's coming out is going to be, you know, about flat earth debate, how all he's doing is yelling at people. How's that going to read? Boy, are they in for a freaking shock.
My parcel came.
What, the mics finally came?
Not exactly. I mean, I went down to the post office for a second time and was like, look, I really want this. And they're like, well, we'll have another look. But I was armed with a picture, so I went back to the guy. I was like, have you got a picture of it? I took a printout with me, gave it to them, and they were like, oh, I know where that is. I'm like, really? And then she came back with it, and I'm like, oh, brilliant. I was like, why didn't you find it the first time? She's like, well, you said it was brown. I was like, I don't know what colour it is. I just guessed. Because it looked brown to me, and most suitcases are brown, aren't they? They're leather. I assume they're brown. And she was like, no, it's not brown, it's grey. I'm like, well, I didn't know that. I'm colourblind. She's like, well, you said it was grey. You said it was brown. I was like, yeah, because I'm colourblind. And she was like, oh, I'm really sorry. I'm like, no, you don't have to apologise for me being colourblind. It's like, I'm just glad you've got it. So I was delighted. So I brought that back, and because one of the change in energy might be because there was a particular point where, well, basically when I reached zero in my bank, my bank took my overdraft away from me quite some time ago. So if I hit zero, it's quite a panic. When I knew that day would come, and when it did, I'm like, well, I'm not going to buy any more mics then. And I knew that would be the point where I'm like, that will mark the end of this temporary endeavour in terms of the buying section, you know. And I guessed it, so I wasn't keeping an eye on my bank balance. I never do, because it always scares me. So I never look at my bank balance. I just wait for the bank to text me that I've run out of money. But there we go. But gone are the days where you're like, oh, I've run out of money. Oh no, I'm in my overdraft. Now it's I've run out of money completely. Run out of money, and therefore things start bouncing. You're like, oh crap, that's not what you need.
Yeah, that's why I hate the people that say, well, money don't get you happiness. Let me tell you something, buddy. Money gives you peace of mind, and that'll give me happiness. Because when you don't know where your next freaking payment of a certain bill's coming from, don't you tell me money ain't gonna make me happy.
Well, that's still strictly true. I mean, even if it does make you happy, generally speaking, people plateau. Regardless, if you have the happiest thing in your life happen to you, there's only so many chemicals that your brain can let rush in. Eventually, you've got to return to normality, even if your normal is then easier.
Yeah, no matter what you get, you're right. Because I always wondered as a kid, look at Christmas. There's such an anticipation for Christmas. And then right after you open up all the gifts, there's like a downtime, you know? And it's like, because you got yourself all worked up to this point, and now it's to come down. I don't know, very weird.
Well, yeah, that's just human nature, though. You know, you can't be constantly on a high, and people chasing it will, you know, go to substance abuse to achieve it sometimes, right? I'm sure you can relate us with that as well.
Well, that's the trick, because you chase it with substance abuse and you just prolong the inevitable. That there's got to be a down, you know? Even anything, you think, oh, I get this freaking TV, this big screen, I have surround sound, and it gets boring. Yeah, I had that. All right, big deal. Watch Star Wars, hear all the sounds. All right, that's over with. What's the next thing? Never knew the next thing would be just freaking being happy, being able to pay bills, though. But that's how they
No, it isn't.
constructed.
That's just how you're looking at it, right? So generally speaking, even when you're very desperately poor, as long as you're appreciating what's going on in life. So for me, that's this section of my life is the section where I've got kids. Now, most people, that floats on by while they're at school. Well, I'd rather be in poverty and homeschooling my kids and appreciating that bit than being the voice of every single slightly older person that I come across recently, you know, the last 8 years recently, where they're like, oh, it goes so quickly. 1 minute they're a baby, then they're grown up. And if only I could go back. You're like, man, the amount of people that express regret for not being around their kids as they grow up. It's like, I don't have those feelings. I don't yearn for when Eleanor was Clover's age. So I remember it because she was here. She wasn't at school.
Yeah, because people shipped them off to school. Homeschooling was the best thing because, yeah, you have your kids around you. Listen, I'm not talking about that. That's unspeakable joy when you have your kids around you and you watch them grow. That's different. That's different altogether. But they rigged the system, and now it's going to be very hard.
It's not rigged. It's God, right? You're blessed, and you don't even realise it, and how much you appreciate it is offset by your poverty. You're like, you just said it yourself. It's the greatest of joy. Well, I feel that pinch because God's got to maintain balance, hasn't he? So.
It's the greatest of joy watching them grow up, yes, and all that thing. But when you're pushed to the wall and, okay, how am I going to pay this bill to keep them in this place? Yeah, that's when it gets a little, listen, it is rigged.
God's got your back.
They've outpriced the common man, Nathan. Come on, you can't be ignorant to this.
Well, you've got influence. You've got power of influence, Neil. You are sentient. Is that the right word?
Yes.
Right, so you've got power of influence, Neil. But ultimately, I mean, what you say the game is rigged. No, I think God's achieved an amazing balance. It's a very difficult thing to achieve. Such beautiful harmony. But just don't focus on the negative.
I'll give you, for instance, had 3 jobs. I was like, this is great. Not one of them has called me yet. I went to one, I looked at it. The guy's supposed to be ripping it out. And he gave me the price. I didn't give him the price. And I agreed to it because fine.
I stop you
Still
there.
haven't got a call back yet.
Right, well, then you need to obey the rule of 10. Okay, so what you've got is 3 contacts, 3 cold calls, but they're not cold calls because they're proper contacts, right? So you've gone beyond cold calls. So you're at the stage where you need something to actually develop into a job. Then you need 10 people who are potentially looking to have the work done. You need to be in touch with 10, not 3. And if you're in touch with 10, by the time you get in touch with the 7th, which is to say, generally speaking, if you know what you're talking about and you know where to find people who need what you can provide, and you've already got 3 on the line, you need to contact 3 more. And by the time you contact the 4th, one of them, either one of the ones that have already been put into your pipeline, as it's known, or one of the ones that you've just worked on, will give you the work. So just don't stall. Obey the rule of 10. By the time you get to 10, you will have work. Sound crap? It is. Work's always like that. It's crap and hard. With me, rule of 10 applied to buying microphones. I had to approach 10 people with a microphone for sale and say, excuse me, can I buy your microphone for peanuts, please? Like, insultingly low amount of money. And obviously, 9 times out of 10, they said no, no matter how I phrased it. But 1 in 10 would say yes. And if you can do that all day, every day, you can spin a profit on them. But if I only approached 3 and went, well, if I can just get 1 more microphone to sell, I'll be all right this month on my mortgage. But I've got 2 people that have said that they were going to sell it me and they just haven't got back to me. Like, well, then you need to keep contacting people like flooring, don't you?
Well, they were actually saying the other day, they were saying that with this AI influence now, that within the next 5 years, over 70% of the white-collar jobs would be gone. So you're better off learning how to do plumbing,
Really?
like electricians.
Yes.
Air
You're going to add
conditioning.
that caveat. Good. Yes. I was about to make the example by asking SIRI to paint my house, but you know.
Well, it makes sense because a lot of the stuff, white-collar jobs can be done by AI, but physical jobs cannot be done by AI. Not yet, that is.
I don't know. There's going to be a lot of things that You say they can be done by AI, but can they really? It's a shame Craig's not here because he'd back me up on this conversation. It's garbage in, garbage out. So I recently watched a video where people were up in arms because of an AI band. You're like, okay, somebody's taken the AI tools for making music and created an entire album worth of music, and indeed an entire, band full of guys that don't even exist, to punt music on Spotify, and it's worked, and they've got hundreds of thousands of people listening to this completely AI generated music that is from people that don't exist, playing music on instruments that have never existed. And you're like, okay, but there is somebody at the helm of the computer guiding the AI in terms of what it needs to produce. He's the producer. Now, is he still utilising the tools that have scraped the data to learn how to play music that's from all the actual musicians who created the algorithms within that AI tool to then regurgitate out what somebody's just typed into a little bot engine? I've watched Mr. Cheswick work with AI tools to create music, so I know what's involved, and I'm sure that there's still obviously going to be an element of work. No one's just going, AI, make me an award-winning album, and it just spits out an award-winning album on Spotify, because if that was the way the world worked, that's all anybody would ever do. They'd just say, obviously that's not the case. There's still going to be a producer. But the reality is that the data that comes out of that process, right, for this example, the music data example, is still, it sounds so generic because it is produced from the scraped data of every other good bit of music that's ever been. And what's good about the next piece of music isn't that it sounds exactly like the formulaic garbage that preceded it, that the data's been scraped off to get to that stage. It's the inspiration of somebody producing something that you've never heard before that takes you by surprise. It's something that's slightly outside of the norm, something that breaks a few rules, that tends to capture people's imagination. AI can't do that. It can only take that which has already existed. Well, as much as I'm not going to knock Led Zeppelin, but if your AI trains itself on that, you're going to get something that is like Led Zeppelin, but it ain't going to be Led Zeppelin. And Led Zeppelin aren't what they are because of sounding like, if somebody had got the AI tool, gone back in time and replaced Led Zeppelin with them, it wouldn't have created the Led Zeppelin magic. And that's the same for anything that's currently available. There's producers and people that are coming up with the artistry to create that music. And if you scrape the data and create an AI algorithm to try and do the same thing, it's always going to fall just slightly flat. It's never going to have the same magic. And that X Factor, as they used to call it in the pop show stars shows on TV when I was a kid, I'm sure they still have them, right? The X Factor is just never going to be there from an AI algorithm. All it can do is copy. Garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, it's funny you're bringing up AI because it was something that I came across there. It was this morning or last night, and it's about people giving AI more credit than it deserves. There was Grok AI was referring to itself as some form of a Hitler, right? And there was a big uproar over this, and it was kind of attacking Israel and that kind of thing, right? And in one post, this was on a show I was watching that was addressing this. In one post that it gave to somebody, it referred to, let's just say, all the Epstein files and blah 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 and the government thing and all that, and it referred to them as like you can't trust them. They're mainstream. It's like, no, you are mainstream, right? Grok is mainstream. All of that is mainstream, and it's pumping out the rubbish that's put into it. So it's at the point now where it's trying to give people the impression, whoever's directing it, give the impression that this AI is somehow now conspiratorial or not mainstream,
edgy and alternative.
Yeah, edgy and alternative. When it's not, it's just rubbish put into it. And the first thing I thought of, ask it, is the earth flat? And wait to see the rubbish you get back from it. Right? Suddenly, it's not edgy. Suddenly, it's all mainstream, only mainstream, and it has no other rhetoric. It depends on what you ask it. But with certain things, on the conspiracy side of things and current things, it's suddenly edgy. Exactly, and it's rubbish. It's just programmed to be that way at present.
Exactly.
And when they got
it's just
about it,
it's just programmed that way.
You got them. Yeah.
Do you remember Short Circuit?
Of course.
You got the Steve Guttenberg character explaining that the Johnny 5 character doesn't get hot, doesn't get cold, it just runs programs. Like, yeah, if somebody's decided that Grok needs to be particularly left-wing, for example, well, then you steer the algorithm in that way, because you've got control of the algorithm. But garbage in, garbage out. Now, if you set it up to run and do certain things, like interact with social media in a certain way, and you've set it to be biased to a certain degree, then it'll just express those biases. Now, when you say, well, it's become like this, you're like, no, it was set up to be like that. The fact that it's done things after the fact that a human could do that had a certain bias is meaningless. It's just running programs.
Yeah, it's like the actor is not the movie. Without the script in the movie, the actor wouldn't exist. If you know what I mean. It's that kind
Well, that's the problem. People are idiots, right? Do you remember EastEnders? There's a character on called Ian Beale who lives in my hometown. And back in the day when I worked in one of the electrical stores on the high street, he'd come in and he would buy stuff from me without any fuss or muss or bother, because I was predominantly focused on selling him something, taking his money, and getting him the hell out of the shop as quickly as possible without moaning at me. Now, other people recognised him and wanted autographs or to talk to him or call him Ian. And it's like, he doesn't want that. He's just a dude. He's an actor, right? Now, me, I recently trained as an actor. So to me, I kind of got it and knew that if he's in the store, he's not going to want to give autographs. There's a reason he's got a cap over his face. He just wants you to leave him the hell alone, right? Ian Beale was the character, not him. But some people are so dumb that they don't realise that, right? Now, that's what all the clapping for the NHS and all of that stuff that we've just discussed in the last hour or two, that all buys into that, doesn't it? People's mentality.
Yeah, I'd be the same. I mean, I wouldn't even bother approaching somebody who would be, you know, on a show or in a film or anything. I wouldn't care. Unless there was something good, something humorous or something that'd be worth approaching the person. Other than that, I wouldn't care. And I certainly wouldn't be thinking of the person as being the character from the movie. But people do that. And they go, it's blah-de-blah, the name out the character. As opposed to, no, he's just a guy who acts that character. He's not really him, kind of thing.
Didn't Alex Jones take advantage of that in one court case? He's like, no, you can't use my character against me in terms of, I think it's like a child support case or something like that. It's like, look, I'm not this over-the-top person in real life. Now, for me, I'd never get away with that defence. It's like, are you like the person on your show? Yeah, that's Angry Nathan, all right. I can turn it on for the show, as you well know. But that's because I've got a good grasp on my demons. I know what they are. So I can just, you know, turn them on or pretend that they're being turned on at will. Obviously, some things do genuinely get me angry. I'm just a person, right? But you know what I'm getting at? Yeah? So if someone was like, well, is that what you're like? And I'm like, well, yeah, it is what I'm like when I'm angry. If you know what I mean? Whereas Alex Jones was saying, that's not what I'm like. That's just some character I play with my name.
Well, they think that's what they get in the book. Funny you should say about the music, Mr. Cheswick, because yesterday he was doing a show, and man, was he mocking Jaron. He wrote him a song, but I don't know what happened. Everything got washed away from his YouTube account again. It's an empty freaking room.
Mr. Cheswick is a muso, as we used to call him. Now, musos are weird. There's no other way to put it. Now, without being deprecating to musos in general, there's plenty of, muso jokes to get that point across. They're just weird in terms of how they behave, what they do, what's important to them. And often it's not important to the what we perceive to be the end result being important. So if you ever listen to any stories of how stuff that's musical gets produced, often there's going to be a story about something that seems like a quite insignificant detail in the music that's had so much focus put into it that you're like, really? They spent how much in the studio on that one aspect? Really? In 1970, 70 grand just on that? Wow. And you go, yeah, musos are weird and they don't care. That's not, but at the end of the day, the process produced X. So how can you argue that they spent that much time on one note of the piano being a certain way and they didn't like it and they did it over and over again? Musos are weird. That's what they're like. So often I've seen it several times. Cheswick will just decide he doesn't want anything on his channel anymore. And, there might be a persecution reason behind it, there might not. But he'll just take it all down. Now, I've seen his channel get removed as well. But you know what I mean? Go ahead.
He didn't. He said this is really suspicious. Am I onto something here? Why is all my content gone? But he was complaining that everybody in his chat was from somewhere else. So he's like, I would just like one original person to just find me. I said, fair enough, but I didn't hear you until Adam Meakin mentioned you. So, yeah, I'm coming for flat earth debate, but how else are you going to get out there unless people share you? You're going to get people from all different channels if they hear about you. I don't know.
He can't. He has the stigma. He's flat earth, so there's no way. This is the problem. As soon as you
That's what somebody said in chat, actually.
He's connected to FED as well. That makes it much worse than the normal. So that's the problem. We are who we have to suppress above all else, and anyone connected to us will be suppressed. Because even if someone comes to him and comes to his channel for the music, they will encounter other things. That's the problem.
Yeah, I wish I would have just freaking downloaded it immediately because he had a good freaking song, Mockingjay, and I mean, he was really good.
Well, tell us about it.
Busters. I can't remember anything from it. I figured I had it everywhere, because I shared it with One Deck. I shared it with Craig, but when I go to pull it up, it says error.
I get it. Heroin's a hell of a drug.
But yeah, it was good. He was Mockingjay. But he said he gave that song to you. He made that Where's the Guns, Nathan, specifically for you, and he gave it to you. So that's like your song.
He's a sweet guy. Anthony was telling me, I've never met him, but Anthony Riley was telling me about him. He sounds like a really sweet guy. And he did give me that song. He was like, have it, it's yours. He made sure that I had the HD version of it, so it was like, I want you to have it. And I published it based on what we'd played from his channel, as again, it's vanished, which is kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to republish it, because I went looking for it, and I'm like, where is it? Didn't exist. Cheswick's version didn't seem to exist. So I went back to my playing it on a live stream, pressed the link, no, video doesn't exist. So I thought, well, I'll publish it. And then Cheswick was like, did you not get my email with the HD version saying you could have it? I'm like, no. And he's like, check your spam. So I checked, and then by coincidence, he happened to have literally sent me one an hour prior to that conversation. So it was sat there waiting at the top of the spam list. So I'm like, he must have sent it previously with that, message, and it's just vanished. So I dug it out of spam, downloaded the HD version, and then re-uploaded it in high quality, hacked it up and made it slightly shorter for a shorts version. So now Where Are the Guns is out again 6 months later, but with a nicer, nicer version, a HD version, which didn't exist. When I was searching for it, there was the reaction videos where other people have tried to dilute how awesome his song was by making up other Where Are the Guns, Nathan versions that are total crap to try and dilute the algorithm.
Wow. Yeah, he's a good guy, man. Very talented.
My
Yeah,
kids
sorry about the background noise here, Nathan. You might hear a little bit of background noise, but we're not on the live show, but I still don't want it. I'm in Tesco's. But just on something we mentioned earlier, I'm trying to get the borders to get an angular size measurement of their grade, right? And they won't do it. Now, I've tried to contact a couple of surveyors, get them to do it. And I think that they're thinking that I'm pulling their leg. Do you know what I mean? Because what I'm asking them to do, they don't seem, the ones I've contacted don't seem to understand why I want them to do this. But they don't realize that as I looked into it, the actual measurements of that height of that mountain, if you look into where they came from, you get nothing. It's all vague. Now, there might be some information somewhere, but it's all really vague. But so I'd contest even the height of the mountain myself, because until I see measurements that prove it's the height that it's claimed to have. But I cannot get them to paraphrase. They want to ask me what angle would you expect on this, and what or listen, a lot of rubbish questions. It's 50 questions and no action. They will not take it on. They will not go out and get the measurements. They're avoiding it like the plague. That's not the only.
We'll have to talk in code when we talk about this then, so that I don't balls it up when you're. I intentionally didn't interrupt any of that, so I could hear how you've managed to be subtle about what in regards to this specific type of measurement, which we won't mention anything in detail about what it might be. But that particular type of measurement that you'd hope that they'd engage with us with, they're not wanting to. Yeah? And I assume that if you go to the surveyors, they're like, in a way, you're trying to appeal to them for something that might seem like a nothing burger. It's like, why would you want us to do that? But because the significance is completely lost on them. Now, if they did achieve it or do it, they'd just be doing what they do, and it seems like no big deal, even if you did tell them why the angle measurement's significant or what you were using it for, right? Regardless of what our opponent might regard the utilisation of that angle on a ball to be, if you know what I mean. But they don't want to even get involved in the argument, and the people who are presumably being approached see it as benign.
Yeah, I think that the messages, because I'm sending them emails and I'm not getting replies back. So that tells me that they think this fella's just having a laugh. And they're going, well, we have work to do. So I understand that. But I have to contact them again and say, no, I'm actually serious about this. I need a ball. I've been looking for a ballpark figure so I can then crowdfund it. If you know what I mean. So I want to get a ballpark figure off them first before I tell them I'm going to crowdfund it. Because if I tell them I'm going to crowdfund it, they might up the figure in the hopes that they could get paid more or double than what they normally would, because it's going to be a crowdfund situation. It won't be somebody just paying a set rate for whatever they would do. Because this is not something they would do. This has all been done in the past. So they say that already happened.
I don't know if that's the case. It's a composite.
Well, I want an angular size of the mountain. I'm looking straight past the photograph. It's the angular size of the mountain I'm looking for. I want them to measure that. I want it to be professionally measured from Southport. Sorry?
There's someone from, is it the Noob? Go ahead, Noob. Are you hot micing, Noob, or are you trying to join in with the conversation?
I can't hear that.
Noob. Noob, can you hear us? Hello?
Like discipline.
Well, I'd like to go and just for the sake of meeting up with you, if we can get it crowdfunded, get somebody down there with a professional piece of equipment to measure the angle from, what is it, Dalcraig, from where?
Well, I was going to say from Southport. It's about 50 miles. It doesn't
Southport.
have to be. It could be from. You could do it from Blackpool. It doesn't matter. Once it's at a pretty good distance, you'd be talking from Blackpool probably about 40 or so miles. But the whole point of it is the measurement itself. You know what I mean? And that's the purpose of it. Because I like, why am I wanting them to do this measurement? You understand why I want them to do the measurement. The bowlers understand that that's why they're staying away from it. You know, it's like, how are they going to go about this measurement? You know what I mean? What are they going to have to do? What do they have to adhere to? So it's something that's been done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. But now we're actually paying for it to get done about a specific situation. And that will absolutely show with professional measurement what the art must be for this measurement to happen.
You know who's always quite good with maths? Conspiracy Cats. Maybe we could ask him.
Oh, he is. He always was.
I don't know why his name came to mind. I'll put it out of my mind.
Yeah. I don't know either. It's a bit of a mystery, isn't it? Yeah, because it's like, this is it. This is the measurement. It'll either show one thing or the other. It's that simple. And we all know what it's going to show, and that's why until today, and that's why they're avoiding having that to do.
This all started with this.
Well,
whole
they
thing.
keep telling us how we're not measuring it flat. That's what I laugh about.
Well, they want to measure it with rulers on a cropped composite, don't they?
Well, the guy said, so you mean on 24/7. So you mean to tell me I can't take a string and wrap it around a large beach ball and then take the string and lay it out flat and measure it? Oh, you got to lay it out flat, do you? The whole system of measurement comes from flat. They didn't start making rulers out of curves.
Yeah,
Was that a globe or a flat earther that said that, Neil?
Oh, well, of course. But I know Flat Earthers has been saying it too.
Oh, man, you should have heard what they were saying in there yesterday.
Oh, do tell us.
AV, one of the flat earthers told me I had to prove that a circle of equal elevation is actually a circle. I'm like, okay, I guess you think it's a rectangle?
Why are they even contesting it?
Because they don't like the fact that northern latitudes are derived from your elevation angles to Polaris. They say that that's essentially they were saying I'm hijacking the celestial sphere by saying that, and it's just I don't understand it. And then they're like, well, have you ever walked the circle to know it's a circle? And I'm like, oh my God. Is there another shape where you can be completely different opposite ends of that shape but have the same distance to the center? Does that work on a triangle or a rhombus or what? You know, it's ridiculous.
They're taking the angle measurement, I've got it on screen now, but just with the sun, that creates the celestial sphere, and suggesting that when you talk about the initial measurement, you're hijacking what they take after the fact to create their ball with, and saying that you're hijacking it by pointing out that the angle measurement to Polaris is flat. It is. But they don't like it. They want you to have started with the celestial sphere, the pre-assumption that we're on a ball, or in a ball in that case. At least they're in the ball, not on the globe when they're telling you to assume the celestial sphere. You realise that, right? You're at the equatorial plane then?
I think these are flat earthers
Neil.
that are going after
Neil. That wasn't rhetorical. You appreciate that they've got you in the ball when they want you to except from what I've gleaned, that you are hijacking the celestial sphere. Oh, well, okay, I'll accept the celestial sphere. So we're on a flat plane then, at vernal equinox. Checking if you knew. It's okay to say no, but that's where you take them, because you're pondering why or what to do when they're presumably telling you you're hijacking the celestial sphere. You go, no, I love the celestial sphere. You'll need a flat earth for that, is the response. It's like, yeah, the equatorial plane. That's where the angles measure through the ball from hell. If you want to infer that there's a ball inside the celestial sphere, you need to accept the flat earth that you're in that ball on measuring the angle through the ball to the celestial sphere. They say you're hijacking. Yeah?
Oh, it didn't even get that far. I ended up getting muted, so I left.
Oh, shocking. What
Are
are
they
they?
flat earthers they're talking about or globus?
It's on screen now, just for my audience. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, because when I was talking about circles of equal elevation, I wasn't even talking about latitude. I was just saying in general. I mean, if you use a Saturn or something, and Saturn's 45 degrees in the sky, you can make a circle of. That doesn't mean that you're on 45 degrees latitude with Saturn, but they were just content having an issue with the circle of equal elevation, regardless of which star you're using. Like, how do you know it's a circle? You got to prove it's a circle. If you can't prove it's a circle, you can't say it. Da,
Well,
da, da.
the
Weird.
problem they
I
have is
just
that
don't,
they're denying the
because it's just
GP.
simple geometry.
They're denying the GP,
Huh? Sorry, Brian.
right? Right. The GP of this whatever celestial body you use, whether you're measuring the angular height of a mountain or you're measuring an angle to the celestial body, the GP has to be vertically directly below that. Right. Well, if you're obviously at a high elevation above sea level, then the GP will be below you, but it'll be at a parallel to the line that you make. You're adjacent. The adjacent of the triangle. So they have to ignore the GP, because if you're talking about celestial navigation, you're dealing with hundreds, thousands of miles, where their GP, right, if they try to invoke one, their GP would be down and behind, backwards and behind, geometrically behind where the actual GP would be. Right? If you place their GP on their globe geometrically, it actually ends up being down, back, and behind where the real GP would be, because there starts being a difference there, because the GP is on a flat plane in reality. So they have to try and deny that, but it all comes down to them denying the right angle triangle being used in celestial navigation. They want to deny that they're measuring a vertical angle or height to a celestial body. And how they deny that is they're saying that you're not using a right angle triangle. But that's the very thing that you're measuring. You're literally like measuring the angle or height, in vertical angle or height of this celestial body above the Earth. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, it's called an elevation angle measurement.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're denying that the elevation angle that you will measure with a celestial body will be a right angle triangle, yet that's what an elevation angle is. And the reason they deny it is because you can't give them the correct height of, Polaris or whatever. Because Polaris doesn't have a height. You can't give it a height. Polaris appears to rise and as you rise. So, and same with the rest of the celestial bodies. So the rest of the stars and that. How are you supposed to give it a height? You can't.
And
So
what do
they
you
just
need it
keep
for?
on trying to bring it around in a circle and a straw man. Go on.
Well, it's both correct but also non sequitur. It's one where you go,
Right.
You can't give me the height. No, I can't. Yeah, the angle remains the same as I raise in altitude, which means it's behaving very strangely compared to terrestrial measurements of angles to things that we can actually verify. Their angle would decrease as I would raise with respect to the thing I'm measuring, because I'm reducing the angle till eventually I'll overtake it and it'll become a depression angle. But with the stars, they don't do that. No matter how high I go, the angle remains the same. Therefore, I cannot. Not only that, if the system is to work, you can't infer the height, because at 0 in degrees, it's not smashed into the horizon. It's just above somewhere else very far away.
Exactly. I mean, if you take, like, what I got back for them, because I put out a video recently asking them to give me the height of Polaris using elevation angles, right? And none of them wanted to address it. I got a lot of rubbish back in.
Violet's going to say they're hers. Yeah. She didn't think she's going to school.
Mute, Vaxi.
You're off mute. You're off mute.
Mic discipline.
Bye-bye, Mama.
Tell Mama I said hi.
Yeah.
Hi, darling. Kiss, kiss. Tell Grandma we'll be leaving later.
Sorry, guys. My bad.
Yeah, recently I've asked them to give me the correct height of Polaris, right, using elevation angles, right? And none of the borders will take it on. Yet that's the very thing they're trying to lay at my door. And even when I point out that for them to address that type of thing within their paradigm, they must within their paradigm, move Polaris down when they bring the angle down to their terrestrial, their equatorial plane. But they don't want to address that, the fact that they have to do it. They don't want to address that, have anything to do with that, even though that's what they must do within their paradigm. They want to deny, and you can see them in my comments of the video. They're denying that Polaris and the other celestial bodies have this effect, completely outright denying it, when they do have, and even for them to use it mathematically within their paradigm, they've got to adhere to it, but they deny it. So it's a complete straw man. How the Polaris or whatever other celestial bodies, how they do what they do, why they do what they do, I don't know. But that doesn't mean that we're not using an elevation angle, right? You're still using a right angle triangle, right? That's what an elevation angle is. You can't just suddenly change what the elevation angle is purely because you don't want it to be a right angle triangle for that specific situation. It doesn't work that way. It's still a right angle triangle. Because otherwise, what they're doing is they're claiming to be measuring an elevation angle that has no elevation, right, to it, but that would be, there'd be no opposite. You're not measuring any vertical angular height, so that means there's no opposite. So an elevation angle that's always zero, that is basically a straight line. So every single elevation angle you'd measure based off of their mentality on the situation would be zero, because they can't take on board the fact that it's going to have to be a right angle triangle, because that's what you're literally measuring. You're measuring the opposite, which is the very thing they're denying is part of celestial navigation. It's stupid.
Yeah. But the only way...
Sorry. It didn't even get that bad, because you got to remember, like, all the people that I was arguing with this about, they're all flat earthers. There wasn't a single glober in the room yesterday. It was just the flat earthers being upset about circles of equal altitude not being actual circles, and I have to walk the circle and film myself walking the circle of equal altitude to prove it's an actual circle. It's just
circle is created by the measurements of the distance, which is straight line horizontal distance. So the straight line horizontal distance is the radius of that circle. That's how you form the circle.
Exactly.
So what are they saying?
Like, once you make a right angle triangle and you were to just pivot that right angle triangle around, it's going to make a circle. If each point where that right angle triangle is facing towards the center is going to be equal distant, even if you're 180 degrees opposite of it, because that only happens on a circle.
Yes.
Like, they were trying to argue it could be something different. Like, no, it can't be a straight line. It can't be a square. It can't be a rectangle. That only happens. The only shape that allows your distance to the center to be even anywhere on that point of the shape is a circle. Yeah. It was really weird that I thought you guys were all big brains, you know? I don't understand what the
no. You've got to remember,
is.
For you've had multiple people that have explained this in multiple different ways for several years, spanning from 10th Man and his first... I'm sure there was others who mentioned it. QE would be furious if I didn't mention that he'd definitely mentioned celestial navigation before 10th Man. But going through it and through it and through it and through it over and over again to the point where we all understand areas of equal elevation, the converging points if you're looking for a fix in celestial navigation, the GP that Brian is focused on, because it's all relevant. but requires a flat Earth. And if you don't fully understand it, you don't fully understand it. So when you say, I thought you were all big brains, well, no. There's many flat earthers. There might have been shills that shied away from it for whatever reason. And it turned a load of other people off. That it's not easy stuff you've got to learn. As soon as you start describing flipping...
You're
Hold
making
on, I'm not done,
Nathan.
As soon as you start describing spinning around that triangle to create the area of equal elevation, the circle of equal altitude, the thing he's finding people object to, I knew implicitly that he understands how that's formed with the triangle, therefore he understands the whole process, right, Vaxi? You know all of it, but they don't.
Yeah. I mean, no,
Nathan,
that
you're
is
making
true because,
excuses
like,
for them.
I remember when you guys first started talking about elevation angles, it was right before I joined Discord. It was right after, and I remember it was for like 7 or 8 months straight, every day for like 4 hours. That was the only thing being discussed, to the point where I couldn't stand hearing it anymore because I wasn't getting it. But once it actually clicked, I think it's the simplest argument to understand now. Now that I understand, it's just people get intimidated with geometry, especially if they're 27 and haven't been in school in over a decade and haven't even thought of it since before they graduated. Like, you just forget about this simple stuff. It's just triangles.
Yeah, but Nathan, you're making
I don't
excuses
even
for
think it's
them.
that.
They had Johnny, the freaking captain of a boat. He used to go in there, lay it down for them. We went in there, we broke it down for them. They're familiar with all of this.
Yeah,
It's
but
just the way
sometimes
they're
Johnny
operating
was
now.
good at it, but
I don't
sometimes he's
even
really
think
hard to follow. I haven't seen him in a
I
while. I
don't
hope
even
he's
think
doing
it's all
okay.
that.
Oh, he's just
You must
shit-faced. I
say-
wouldn't worry.
I don't even think it's all that. I think it's a problem flat earthers have is they start thinking that they're going to know better, or that this is some kind of globe nonsense or whatever, and they start trying to outsmart the thing, and they end up looking stupid. I've had that myself with several literally at this age, many flat earthers in the past 10 years, where they try to go against something or try to use something that can't be used in the way they want to use it, and they just have their facts wrong. And a lot of them listen to the ballers as well. They think they're getting some kind of sense out of the ballers sometimes, and they start coming back to you with nonsense that was basically with statements they're only making because they've been manipulated by or just pure listening to ballers who can't ballers can't know what they're talking about because they keep referring to something that doesn't exist, so they have to be wrong.
I hate to say it, but I think it's an even more vapid reason on why they don't like the argument. It's simply because, I mean, you guys, like, FED didn't come up with this. Like, it's not like you guys sat around and figured something out. It's just something that's always been in plain view forever. As far as circle of equal altitudes, Polaris' elevation angle being your latitude, that's just something that humans have known forever, ever since we've been getting in boats and floating around. It's
But we
not
brought
the
it to the
argument.
table.
It's who popularized the argument, and that's why they don't like it. Like, it's super vapid because I mean, I probably shouldn't have because I know you guys are all like QE and Nathan are banned there, but I just merely mentioned because I'm like, they're like, oh, what are you doing over here? I'm like, well, Nathan hasn't done a show in a couple days, so I'm over here, and they started calling they started saying, well, we don't need to talk about fire art celebrities. No one cares about the Kardashians. Nathan's the Kardashians. I'm like, oh, geez, you guys are comparing Nathan to the
I got an
Kardashians?
upgrade. I'm no longer Jerry Springer. I'm a Kardashian. Well,
Yeah,
things are looking up.
You're like, no, talking about Nathan or QE or any of the shows you guys do is no different than talking about the Kardashians or Paris Hilton, apparently. It's
If
funny.
the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Well, that sums it up, Vaxie. You hit it right in the head. It's because it's coming from
it's
over
all
here.
like, it's the people that have really honed the argument to a sharp weapon. That's why they don't like it, because of the personalities that, made it normal to use as an argument.
Just lazy. It's just hard. Learning celestial navigation was bloody hard. 10th man, God bless, he was determined to make us learn it. And learn it we did. It cost him thousands of dollars in books. Thousands.
Oh, yeah.
I just sent 10th Man a message saying that you have flat earthers telling us that we cannot say it's a circle of equal altitude unless we prove it's a circle.
Yeah, that's what I heard when I was in the kitchen making my pot noodle. But yeah, it's like I'll meet you in
on the face of it, it doesn't work with anything else but a circle. You can't do it with a triangle or a hexagon or an octagon. Like only circles have enough. Like the surface is going to be the same to the distance, regardless of where you are on that shape. Like I don't understand why it's so controversial to say that over there. It's weird. I don't like. And then it's because of who came up with those arguments and like. It's like I said, it's all factions. It's just it's no flat Earth community. It's flat Earth factions, and
you can pick anything. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's linear distances, elevations off a surface level, or in this case, areas of equal altitude being circular. It's like, well, prove a circle's a circle. I'll meet you in the town square. Prove square's a square. You're like, oh, don't be an idiot.
Then they started talking about hanging plumb bobs off your sextant. I'm like, oh my god, you guys like really don't. And then I realized they don't know the basics of the argument anyway.
Ryan's right.
Like I'm having fire saying, use a plumb bob.
Sorry, Vax, I keep cutting you off. Brian's right. They listen to ballers and they come back and they think they got something.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of them that do take their cues from ballers, unfortunately. And they start thinking that the ballers have a point in something they're saying, not realizing that the ballers don't have a clue about what they're doing. All constantly don't know.
Right.
Right, is Adam back yet?
I was told.
Sorry, Vaxie, just 1 sec. You back yet, Adam? No, carry on. Sorry. Hopefully that didn't kill the conversation.
No. The other thing that I found funny, and again, these are all supposedly seasoned flat earthers that have, been on the scene years longer than me. I didn't get into this until like very late 2018, early 2019. Some of these dudes have been on here since 2014 talking about this. And they were, oh God, I just lost my train of thought on what they said. It was really silly. Oh, they said that you can't use vertical because the Gobers are going to say that all verticals lean into each other because mass attracts mass. And I'm like, wait a second. So you're not going to talk about this because a Glober is going to say mass attracts mass? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So if a Glober says mass attracts mass, how do you combat that?
Are you having me on?
And then
this is the reaction of the cuckold former flat Earth
really
community.
Stupid.
I'm scared of the rebuttal. Oh my God.
My God.
You're surrounded by.
Wait, what you just said is. Sorry,
Good.
I'm just saying, if what Vaxie just said is true, my God, what's going on in these people's heads? I mean,
I don't know.
What has mass attracting mass nonsense got to do with geometry and measurement? Nothing. It's just begging the question.
What's it called? Divergent plumb bobs. That's what they were starting to say. Like you can't.
Not vertical.
You can't talk about true vertical because
they're not
I won't stop. I just want to summarise what I get it. I just want to summarise what's being said because everyone's talking through each other. So what Vaxie's putting across is the ballers' position where they want to deny an axiomatic principle of vertical or parallel with diverging zeniths, and Brian's going, no. This is axiomatic, or words that he didn't use that word, but that's what he's going to be driving at. Over to you, Brian.
Yeah, if they're claiming something is like two zeniths are diverging, then they're not verticals. Verticals are always parallel to each other. There is no vertical if you're claiming a divergence. There's no vertical. And if they want to prove that, then they need to go out and do an angular size measurement of a mountain and prove that the zeniths are divergent. That's simple, isn't it? Because in angular size measurement of anything, right, the zeniths have to be parallel, regardless of the distance. I check out all the measurements of Mount Everest. All the zeniths are parallel, because they have to be. All the horizontals are parallel. So all the zeniths are verticals, and they're all 90 degrees to the horizontal plane of reference that you'll be using to measure your distance between you and Mount Everest, and that'll be parallel to mean sea level, which is also horizontal. These people obviously are thick if they're saying verticals diverge. It's like they need to go and learn geometry, or they just need to go away. That's what they need to get out of the argument and go away, so it doesn't help them anyway.
What Brian's saying is
literally in our way. Sorry.
Yeah, what Brian's saying is the minute you deny an axiomatic principle of measurement, Get lost. It's just you're not worthy of our time. All right, you want to deny an axiom? Sod off.
Like if Brian was in there yesterday morning and just said exactly what he just said, their response would be prove it. Prove that they're not divergent. You can't, just like they can't prove that they are.
I can.
That's stupid.
I can. Absolutely can. That's the point. I can.
That's what. I mean, I'm kind of divining their thoughts, but if I was to say
you're not letting
exactly
him
what you
finish.
just
Hold on
said,
a second,
that's
Vaxi.
what they
He's
would've
saying I can.
Oh.
And the reason he can is because that's how it's practically applied. And he gave an example earlier with Everest.
Right.
Correct.
I can literally show them in GeoGebra, a working diagram. The verticals are not parallel. Idiots. That's why, Baxi, that's why I'm not over on this one. Because that's the kind of rubbish you run into.
No,
That's why
I was going to tell you, you're going to
have.
have to go there, Brian. You're going to have to go in there and set them straight.
No, Neil, you're not getting this. No, never go in there. Stay away from it. It's bad. It does nothing good in there. There was some good in there. Now, the only good that's in there is maybe Eli or Flatsy. I can't even speak for anyone else.
I don't know. He's going to have objection to Eli. I guarantee it. Right, Vaxi?
Eli didn't. Eli was sitting right there and never said anything, and he knows.
See, that's my point. I don't know.
What, you think Eli's a shill? I've thought it all along.
Well, he just started disliking me for some reason once, and then I don't know. I was just kind of bitter.
That's funny because Nathan re-upped that show yesterday when you guys had that whole issue.
Oh yeah.
What was the issue? Remind us. I don't know which show I published on the second channel. They just come out a month or two after I first published them on the first channel. So which show was it?
When Vaxi was going over to 24/7, and they were saying that he denies observation, and the observations are that there are 2 points in the sky, and then it went on from there and escalated into Eli and him arguing.
Yeah.
2 points in the sky. The sky, that blue stuff that's above us, right?
Yeah, the opposite star rotations.
No. When you say opposite, there's an automatic assumption on our opponent's side of antipodal positioning when travelling south, but that violates the base principle of that directionality, doesn't it? So no, when you say there's 2 points in the sky, yeah, okay. If you want to suggest that there's 2 rotational points of the stars mapped for north and south, for the sake of the discussion, I can concede that. But up in the sky isn't automatically assuming that south is violatable on a compass and that I travel antipodal when travelling the direction that the compass points. Neither are true. So I'm not going to assume antipodal positioning for 2 rotational points axiomatically tied to a globe. Why would I do that? I don't have to. I can observe 2 points in the sky above me. The sky's above me. If I travel south, over there towards the horizon in southward direction, yeah, I can do that and still look above my head. The stars didn't come from below my feet as I travelled in that direction. The direction's flat.
I'd like to.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'd like to know who's claiming on the flat Earth side that verticals can diverge. That's what I'd like to know. I'd like names.
You said it. No, I don't want names. Sod off. If you want to deny axiomatic principles, I don't want to take names and kick ass. I want to distance myself from those people.
You're right.
The first time I agree with you.
No. Yeah, that's actually what I want to. Yeah, I want nothing to do with them. Off you go. They're in my. The only thing is, they're in my way. They're in my way. Like, you're agreeing the verticals can diverge. How stupid are you? What are you doing in the same arena as me? I just don't get it. It's like, all you have to do is adhere to geometry. That's all you have to do. You have to adhere to the truth. That's it. You don't have to be a genius.
Exactly.
And you can't even do that.
Everybody knows verticals converge on a concave Earth.
Ryan, you hit it right on the head. They're in your way. That's how they designed it for flat earthers, supposed flat earthers, to be an hour away.
I don't think they need to even design it, Neil, because a lot of these people that are supposedly on our side, they spend more time getting in our way. And like some of them, yeah, it is that was the purpose. But some of them are they just think they know better. Well, I don't know how you could know better than than verticals being parallel, but it's this overconfidence.
Yeah, well, look, you can go over to Earth Awakenings right now, and Jeremy will tell you that. No, they said that they could have circles of equal altitude on a globe. You can go there right now, and he'll tell you that.
How do you measure them? These are things. This is once the measurements of the elevation hang.
There's an answer. I know it was rhetorical. You just don't understand how really big balls work, Brian.
Yeah. I just don't understand really big balls. That's what that, yeah.
Yeah.
Aaron Scampanella.
But in other words, they will just measure it flat. They always do. And then apologise for how you don't understand how really big balls can be measured flat, Brian.
Well, how else are you going to measure it?
Well, you're going to measure it flat. But that's okay, because it's a really big ball, and you just don't understand how really big balls work, Flatty. When I measure Earth flat, that's fine, because it's a really big ball.
Well, you know something I've noticed with flat earthers? They want to use an argument, but then they can't argue it. Let's just say the behaviour of water, the way water always finds its own level, right? Now, I can argue that totally successfully, right? Without a doubt. I've proven it in the past. Because I adhere to what level is. I adhere to geometry. I adhere to what water does. But some people want to use that as an argument, but then when they're put on the spot, they can't argue their position. Like, most of the time, I would consider that argument not to be a good argument, because people keep on not being able to argue the point with it. Because it's not an argument what water does. There's no, we shouldn't have to prove that water lays level, and that level is a two-dimensional horizontal plane. Do you know what I mean? It's not. It's on them to prove something else is happening. You know what I mean? Well, that means you have got to turn level into. First thing you have to do is turn level into a three-dimensional situation. That's the first, and straight away it goes out the window. But flat earthers want to promote arguments, but then they can't argue them correctly. The baller starts arguing against them, and they don't know how to deal with the argument. But why are you bringing up the thing then? Just shut up. Maybe just shut up and just be quiet.
It's funny you should say water, because on that Duffy video from yesterday, Brian, you seen it, right? You got the guy in the right-hand corner, and behind him is a beautiful flat ocean. Nice horizon in the background, and he's over there arguing for a ball. Just
I
funny.
actually didn't see it, Nia. No, come on.
Oh, you got to see it.
I'm actually just coming from the ocean. I've been out there. I've been up high looking at the ocean today. The ocean is not the horizon is not curving ever. You know what I mean? It's not the leading geometric edge of a globe. It's over. It's done. You know what I mean? I don't know, people. But it's just, I get a lot of it at times. I get seeing flat earthers in other flat earthers videos putting in what they think is a better argument, like, which is not really addressing the video that may have come out. This is going on by years. They go, yeah, that's good, but what about this other thing? It's like, that's a sidebar to the video itself. If the video is good or bad, just deal with the video, whether it's good or bad. Don't bring in a sidebar. But a lot of flat earthers want to bring in arguments that they then, like, they're going to then have a conversation with ballers about whether vertical diverges. Why would you have, like, there is no conversation. This is not an agree or disagree situation. It is what it is. You know what I mean? You can't diverge the verticals, because then they're not, vertical becomes a nothing. The same way as if you don't adhere to horizontal planes for up and down, then up and down have no meaning. There is no meaning. If someone's feet are parallel to my feet at the bottom of the globe, then there is no up and down. If that person's down is my up, then up and down mean nothing. But these people don't. I don't know.
Yeah, that got brought up also yesterday morning about how you can't have up and down on a ball. I don't know. Like I said, it puts you on the back foot when you realize you're talking to quote unquote veteran flat earthers. I'm like, wait, why? Like, I don't get it. I thought like you guys should like have this all figured out by now. Like everyone else seems to. And then it got really weird with the right angle triangle. And then you got to like then they were talking about but your zenith isn't always going to be 90 degrees. I'm like, well, no, because if you're looking at Polaris at 32 degrees, the zenith to Polaris right now, from your perspective, is at 32 degrees. But that's where your zenith distance comes into. You should track 32 by 90 times it by 60.
That's totally wrong. You're wrong. Your zenith is always 90.
Well,
and the zenith from the GP of the celestial body is
but you can
always
also
90. Hang on, I'm
right, but you can also call
something.
it 0 too. And that's what they were going up on.
You keep telling us.
Huh? But
He's trying to tell you something, Vaxi.
oh, sorry, my bad.
You just committed the very crime that I've been talking about, and we've been talking about. You just said that your zenith was not always 90. Yes, it is.
No.
Your zenith is always 90. All zeniths are 90 degrees. Like the zenith of the celestial body is 90 degrees from its GP.
Right.
That has no relevance to you. You have your own zenith.
I know, but they started using
That's the point.
Well, see, I for a second I got where they were getting hung up on that, because if you actually type in, like, is your zenith always 90 degrees? What's it going to come back with? No, sometimes it could be 0 degrees. It could be anywhere between 0 and 90.
It can't.
Because they were like, what about?
It can't. Your zenith is always 90. There is no other.
Well, yeah, your zenith from your location. Yeah. But there's certain articles and stuff where it'll start talking about.
There is no other one for you to reference. You don't have another one to reference. There is a zenith from the GP of the celestial body, or a zenith from the GP of the mountain, right? But that's not your GP. That won't be 90 to you, because you're not at that position. You're at your own GP. At your GP, your zenith is 90 to you, right? At the GP of the mountain or celestial body or building, the zenith there is from that GP is 90 degrees to the horizontal, right? Those two zeniths, right, are both vertical and they're both parallel to each other, and they both share the same horizontals. They both share the same horizontal, right? Whether it doesn't matter the elevation of the horizontal, the point is they both share mean sea level as the horizontal. You can have different elevations of horizontal, but they will always be parallel to mean sea level, which is another horizontal. This is just basic geometry. Why you can talk past that? I don't know why people are entertaining.
I put the picture of Master B if you want to take a quick look at it. Beautiful ocean behind him as he fights for a globe.
Okay. All right, and you know what? You're right. I was incorrect about the zeniths, which I thought I see, because I said yesterday that zeniths are always 90, but then they came back with it. But I just realized where the confusion's coming from. Your personal zenith is 90, but the zenith angle. See, this is where it gets. The zenith is the point directly above an observer's head, which has an elevation of 90 degrees. Right.
Off of the zenith. That is not.
If a celestial
the zenith.
is directly overhead at zenith, the zenith angle is 0. That's what they were getting at. Like, and I think that tripped me up too. Because your zenith angle is 0, but if you type in like what is a zenith angle, it's just more or less saying it's your zenith distance.
Did you hear what Brian said?
No, he's not. There's not. The zenith angle is an elevation angle raised the opposite way. It's an angle line from the zenith to the, which is the vertical, from the vertical to the horizontal. An elevation angle is an angle from the horizontal to the vertical. That's why both zenith and elevation angles are always adhere to 90 degrees. It is the same
Right.
angle, just measured the opposite way. All you're doing is switching the numbers around. You're still measuring the same thing. And that's why the zenith angle, right, that the ballers tried to deny, they tried, right, starting with Charles Glover Math. He tried to say publicly that a zenith angle just needs just a zenith, which is the light. It doesn't. A zenith angle, and I've shown this, and I made a whole video involving his claims on bets that showed that the zenith angle is between the vertical and the horizontal. So anyone who's saying anything other than that, it's just wrong. You're just wrong. I don't care what they're saying. I don't care if it's Grok AI. I don't care if it's some special guy on Discord. No, they're just wrong. And that's that. There is no other different one. There's only the one. Enough.
That's fine, because I'm reading exactly what they were reading off yesterday that they found that they were trying to rebut me with. And I fully understand it now, what it was saying. It just threw me off yesterday. But it says, it took me like 3 seconds. The zenith angle, also called the zenith distance, is the angular distance between a celestial object and the observer's zenith. If a celestial object is directly overhead at the zenith is 0 degrees. If a celestial object is on the horizon, its zenith angle is 90 degrees. Therefore, the zenith angle can vary between 0 and 90 degrees, depending on the position of the celestial object relative to the observer's zenith. See, like when they kept asking me like that, when they kept telling me that zeniths are not always 90 degrees, it was confusing me because you don't ever take into account like I said, if flares is at 32 degrees,
that statement is wrong.
They're thinking
that statement is wrong. If they said to you, your zenith is not always 90, then that statement is wrong. But if they had said your zenith angle is not always 90, then that's fine. That's true. But
right, no, that's what it was. It's the word angle. That's what threw me off. That's all it was, and then it took me a second to realize that it's just flipping it upside down.
Where are they leaving that out? Were they leaving out the word angle?
I mean, I probably could have been too, though.
Well, which probably caused miscommunication.
Usually could have been 100% my fault.
On that.
Zenith angle is just the co-angle.
Right. So, I think that's all. I think maybe now I feel bad. Maybe that's where the misunderstanding was coming from.
They shouldn't be arguing with you that you cannot say circle of equal altitude unless you prove it's a circle. Right there, they should not even be in the discussion. You should just pack up and leave.
Right, and that's where I was going to draw the line to be like, okay, you guys have fun, but then it kind of just it snowballed into zeniths aren't always 90 or zenith angles are not always 90 and blah, 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 which is correct. But it just, I don't know, I guess I just stumbled on that. Because I've never had a Glober put that to me in an argument before. So it's like, flat earthers can be pretty shrewd. So maybe that's why they don't like the argument. But if that's the case, they don't understand between your own zenith and the zenith angles. So that's their fault for not understanding that completely.
Yeah, but you just hit it on the head. You said they don't like the argument. That's the problem. They don't comprehend it's not an argument. Nathan keeps saying it's not an argument. Brian keeps saying it's not an argument.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with the argument. They don't like who made the argument popular.
If they were saying your zenith is not always 90, then that's wrong. If they were saying your zenith angle is not always 90, then they're correct. So you have to figure out whether they were adding in or not adding in the word angle with that statement.
Right.
Your zenith angle
I'll have to go back and listen to it.
90 degrees. You're exactly where you are.
Well, yeah, because that's what they said. They said, okay, well, what if you got a star that's exactly 90 degrees? I'm like, you open up your almanac and shit. You don't need to do celestial nav because you already got a zenith, a GP of a star. So you just check the time and then boom, you know where you're at. So you're good at that point. Because I think a lot of them are still under the impression that celestial nav is trying to figure out where you're going, but no, it's trying to figure out where you're at. You're not trying to figure out how to get to a star. You're trying to figure out using other stars where you are. It's about your spot, not about where you're trying to travel to. And I think people get confused on that as well. Because people think, oh, I'm going to use celestial nav, taking over. Oh, so we got to go 500 miles that way. No, it's all about where you are. So, I mean, if you got a star already at your zenith, all you got to do is open up the almanac, check the time, and okay, here we are. But I don't think it matters. They have so much vitriol for that. They'd rather talk about like what causes shadows on the moon during eclipses versus, latitude, I guess, which is whatever.
Hang on. Are they actually talking about what causes shadows on the moon?
Oh yeah, that happens all the time. That's what started all the beef between me personally and them, because was lame.
Yeah, hang on a second now. Who verified it was a shadow?
Exactly.
Well, that's the end of that thing. My God, it's like I'm so validated to never go near a Discord. It's like, thank God I knew better than that. Just stay away from that place.
Yeah, Brian, when I went in there the other day, I was in there for about maybe 2 minutes. Guy comes in, he says, well, how do you know Earth is flat? Just said, we see too far. Laser test, bunch of other nonsense. And I just came in, I said, it's measured that way. End the discussion. But you're still getting, they're not getting it, or they don't want to get it.
Yeah, but that's going to be, take back the situation. Some random guy comes in who's a baller and says, how do you know Earth is flat? On Discord, right? That starts off someone to start producing something, whether it be good evidence or whether it be evidence or not, because it can't be good or bad, because either is or isn't evidence. Producing evidence or not producing evidence for the claim, right? Or to address, his question. And he then tries to go against that. And it all goes around in a big, huge circle. And then later on, the same thing happens. And then it happens again sometime later in the day. And it's happening loads and loads of times on Discord for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And nobody is going anywhere. Nothing is changing. You have the same group of people not learning anything, arguing with the other group of people who don't know what they're talking about. So one group won't learn anything and the other group don't know what they're talking about. How is that going to be? How are you going to make any successful progress in that situation? You're not. That's why Discord is a trap.
Yeah, and then you got a guy like No Tanks that was in here for a while and goes to QE show. Some guy asks, well, how do you know what the Earth looks like? And he starts saying, well, picture a lake, and now picture another lake next to another lake, and now another lake next to another lake, and another lake next to another lake. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
Oh, I think what he was trying to say, he said it in a messy way, but if you got 3 points and A is parallel to B and B is parallel to C, C has to be parallel to A.
That's not what he said.
No,
yeah,
okay.
You're trying to interpret some nonsense that was said. Don't waste your time.
I would even answer that. I do not know what Earth looks like, but I can tell you that it's measured flat, and then go into it and compare it. Just putting lakes next to each other. I mean, this is the kind of shit
You do know what it looks like. You do know. You see it every day. You're constantly seeing it.
Well, I mean, he wanted to know. He wanted to know the fullness of it, the entire size of it, like they all.
Well, nobody can show him that. It's not possible to show it. It's too big for anyone to show it. Is he looking for a photograph? I mean, you can't. It just can't be done. You know what I mean? We can't get up high enough and do what we need to do to be able to get a photograph for the entirety of the Earth, however big it might be. Can't do that.
We never will.
So remember when I read in Job? Why would someone be asking that? What's the purpose of it?
Because
where is that leading to?
I'm going to tell you why. Because he has a globe because he has a globe and the globe is showing him something, and now he wants to see what flat is showing him. But I tried to tell him, you can't use that because it don't exist. You were never on this ball you're talking about, where you live over
No.
here and you're pointing on a globe.
No, it's a nonsense statement that is only designed. This is what I'm trying to get to. I tried to stop you before you went into that part, Bernie. I'm not saying that what you're saying is untrue, but it's a nonsense statement that someone will say on somewhere like Discord to get a reaction out of someone else. So then they're going around in circles where the person who asked the question is never going to concede to anything. They don't know what they're talking about, but they think they do. And the other person is too busy not learning about what they're talking about to be able to argue the point correctly. So it goes nowhere. Just as soon as you hear any stupid nonsense like that, just like switch off the TV. Say it like, oh, that's off.
Well, he claimed he was. He claimed he was a new flat. He claimed he was a new flat earther. Not even flat earther. He's trying to understand it, right? So here's the other thing. Can't get high enough. I read it in Job. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you know. Where were you when I laid a line across it? Where were you when I measured it?
Well,
None
we
of
can't
us
get
were
high
there.
enough because of the pressure issue.
That's what I'm saying. So what God is saying basically is, you are never going to know.
I'm going to round out on that note. So with that, I'll say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.